Hi, my name is Manuel Fury Medina, and I play for Murloc Geniuses.
My name is Jun Jang, and I play support.
So we're here at PAX West, the second regional, and a lot of teams feel like we got a little lucky at the first regional.
Personally, I don't think other teams look at us as we're number one.
Winning the first regional felt really amazing because brand new team. I felt like we had a really good chance, but then once we got to the finals, I really believe that we can actually win it all.
Can they find the kill? Sundering going through, looking for the damage, but June is on top of it. Everyone on Murloc still sitting strong, looking to continue this fight.
For BlizzCon, I'm looking for at least top 4 with my team. It's going to be really challenging because there's a lot of good teams right now.
So I personally feel right now like the top 4 teams are really close, as in skill cap. Like any team can take off games from each other.
Once I got the boot from the team, I really wanted to prove I'm still a good player. When I looked at the bracket, I was like, hopefully I get a chance to beat my old team, and then what better way than at the finals to secure the BlizzCon ticket.
There was a time where I was really desperate of looking for a team. The Burbank was actually probably my last chance to play competitive at all.
Beautiful plays from Murloc Geniuses, and with only June here to try to keep all of these heroes alive.
I was just really focused in the game. I think that's what helped me to not really choke on the stage. I'm actually so much more nervous and so much more pressured on PAX than Burbank for sure. Knowing all the eyes on me.
Deaths are looking in favor of Naventic here, 1 for 1, but June is so very low. How is he standing? He's on the point all by himself with just 100 hit points, and Coughlin just going to town.
On the last Burbank, one of my interviews after the game, I told that I want to be next Mary Day support where everyone recognized as the top sport. That's still my goal for sure. I don't see myself as a best sport yet. I'm still gonna try just as hard as I first joined the Murloc, where no one knew me. Maybe a couple of months, I'll be up there.
When you practice hard in scrims, you just carry that over to tournament, and it's basically the same thing. And we're gonna just do a lot of preparation. You put in the hard work, and it pays off in the end.
Being the champion definitely feels good. We're a really strong team, and if we do what we did before, well, for sure, we're the top.
We're here, and we're going to show that we're still the #1 team in North America.
Will the rise of the Murlocs continue here in North America as our current reigning NA champions take to the battlefield once again here in Seattle, America, as we begin Fall Regional number 2 here to find out who our second team will be moving on to BlizzCon. A warm welcome here to Seattle as we bring you the next Fall Regional here for Heroes of the Storm. And overall, we've got a lot to talk about and a lot to discuss because we already see the Murlocs marching on into BlizzCon, but will they triumph again? To my left, we have Jayhow and Dunk here, ready to bring you some of the action analysis from all the games for today. How are you boys doing? Are you excited to see the Murlocs take to the battlefield once again?
I personally am excited. I think what we saw from them was kind of like they regrouped, new team, but they showed that they have a lot. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit more as we go on, but there's a reason why they're so good. So I'm actually looking forward to see how well they're going to perform at the second one.
Absolutely, and getting to see them first game of the day, I want to see if they're at the same level they were at the last event. I mean, at the last event, they way overperformed, and they know it, and now there's pressure. So this time, will they live up to the pressure, or will they crumble underneath it?
Yeah, we'll find out moving on down the line. Of course, they will be playing first here. Let's take a look at the tournament as a whole here for the Heroes of the Storm Global Circuit, as currently many a region are battling for those spots at BlizzCon. And in fact, Europe is completely done with their spots, of course, with Dignitas and Fnatic moving on. Also, China seeing 2 of their members moving forwards as well. 2 that are a bit surprising overall, so we'll be excited to see that as it goes down the line. Here's the schedule for the next couple of days, of course, as Murloc Geniuses will be opening up the inaugural game of the day on the 2nd here of September, and then moving down the line, we'll see every single game from the tournament, all 5 games per group, and then the semifinals as well as the final coming on in the 4th of September. So make sure to tune in for everything that has been going on throughout the next couple of days here for sure. Of course, we've got a lot to discuss here. As I've said before, there's been some roster changes across the board on some of these teams. TNC is a team that hasn't changed their roster at all. But when you look at the roster changes as a whole here, surely someone like Fan joining GFE is something that really sticks out to you guys.
It's definitely going to be something that sticks out, but, we saw Denial. They're going to be in Group A. We had high expectations for Denial in the first regional. They didn't even make it out of their group, and now they made a little bit of a change, and normally I'm not a big fan of change, but I feel that the change that they did make actually should benefit them, so that's one major change. I know Fan's a big one, but that's one I'm really curious to see how it's going to play out this weekend.
Fan's probably the roster change of the tournament, the story everyone is talking about. How will Gale Force perform? But as far as this group is concerned, Denial picking up iDream is going to be insane. Their last showing was not very good.
Right.
And, those players have a lot of synergy with Dream. They played with him for a long time. So if he's back and he's got the fire and he's performing at his maximum level, I think they have a really good shot this tournament.
Yeah, if they weren't Cloud9 Light before, they certainly are now, something you know a lot about, Dunk. Of course, we have many other people here to introduce you to throughout the tournament. So let's head over to the Xfinity caster desk to see who is with us over there.
Hi, thank you, Caleres. Gilly and Dread here to bring you match number 1. And Dread, this is it. The last chance for a North American team to make it to BlizzCon. I know they're going to bring everything they have to the table this weekend, and it's going to make this event rock.
I think there's a lot of pressure on a lot of teams, not only just Murloc Geniuses, as the desk already talked about, being the team who won finally for the first time ever. Now June feels the pressure. He feels like he has to succeed. But then Naventic is a team who, even with the roster changes, they feel like they have a lot to prove. Gale Force as well. I think these three, and then Denial and the iDream changes, it's crazy. The roster apocalypse 2.0, 3.0, I don't even know what it is at this point. But I feel like every team here wants that last ticket so bad, and so many are like, this is our moment. We are going to prove ourselves.
Well, we're going to see who will prove themselves throughout the weekend. But for now, we're going to head back to the analyst desk. Caleres, take it away.
Thank you very much, guys, from Beyond the Nexus, of course, as we do have a lot, as we said before, with iDream obviously being in, Equinox also back for Astral Authority as well. And we all saw, even in the summer regionals, how well he performed with Astral Authority. So is he going to be that little bit of a spark extra here for Astral Authority?
I think it's definitely going to make them perform better, but when you have Equinox on your team, you hinge on what Equinox does.
Right.
He's their drafter, he's their shot caller, he's whatever they need, and sometimes he overcommits, but he does make plays. And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing is, can they hone it in, finally reel it in, or is it going to be kind of the Equinox that you never know what you're going to get? It could be good, it could be bad, but one thing you know is you're going to get an exciting game from it.
All right. Well, of course, we have another pair to check in with, of course, here over at the stage, I believe. So let's check in with Trickster and Jake to see how they're doing.
What's up, guys? I'm Solid Jake. Thrilled to be back here at PAX West, the second year of Heroes of the Storm, here for this glorious event, and I just can't wait to see all the matches unfold.
Yeah, that's right, Jake. Seattle has been great, but the gameplay is going to be even better. I'm excited for some hot Heroes of the Storm action.
Woohoo! I don't know what just happened. I don't know. That was something special for sure to start off the day. We'll give them a run for our money later on for sure. We'll be able to entertain them as well. So of course we have checked in with everybody who's going to be along for the ride here throughout the entire 3 days of this tournament. Let's take a look now at our groups to see exactly what's going to go down here throughout day number 1, of course, and day number 2. Group A is as follows: Murloc Geniuses, TNC, Denial Esports, and Dumpster Tier Superstars. And then, of course, Group B, which we will be seeing tomorrow, boys, is quite the stacked group, J-How.
When you look at the rivalry between Gale Force and Naventic, it's already been electrifying. And now you sprinkle in a little bit of fans switching teams there, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute.
Exactly.
That could be either really explosive or very one-sided.
All right, let's take a closer look at today's games, as it will be Group A. Murloc Geniuses, our current reigning North American champions, will take on TNC, and then later on we'll have Denial Esports going up against Dumpster Tier Superstars. It's going to be hard to say that throughout the day, I'm sure. So Dunk, looking at that group as a whole, what are you expecting?
Well, I think everyone's expecting Murloc Geniuses to do well in their first match. Nobody's saying TNC is going to be able to take that match against them. Murloc Geniuses looked too polished at the last event. So I think Murloc Geniuses is pretty happy about their first round matchup. They can get into this and get into the flow of the tournament against, one of the lower seed teams. So I think they'll perform really well there. But then in the next matchup, that's what I'm really looking at today. I want to see how Dumpster Tier Superstars performs after the roster shuffle that happened between the last event and this one.
That's a really good point that you bring up, actually. I believe they've picked up Prismaticism, who had a little... when we were looking at our previous regional, he had a little bit of faults when he was playing on Denial, and that might have been one of the reasons why they didn't gel as well. How do you think he's going to do on Dumpster Tier Superstars?
I feel it's always a question mark, and it's something that we kind of see when we see on stage is sometimes nerves get to him. And that can really affect your performance. So it's one of the things is, this is, I believe, his 4th regional event now. Is it a time for him to finally break what has been breaking him and break away from the nerves that have been hindering what would seem to be his play? Because he plays fantastic during qualifiers. It's just a matter of, can he pull it together here?
The team around him are veterans here in the NA scene for sure. It's a different environment though here, being at PAX West compared to being in a studio environment. So who knows how that will affect him moving on forwards. Of course, let's take a look now at our first game. It will be TNC going up against Murloc Geniuses here to start things off. And let's take a look at TNC to begin things. They did not have roster swaps. Out of all the teams here in North America this time, they did not have roster swaps. Is this something that is going to help them a little bit moving forward?
Absolutely. They're one of the only teams that have had this long to build synergy. I mean, we talk about Gale Force and Aventic, and even they have had roster changes, but TNC has just been going at it again and again, ferociously holding on to that roster, and I think it could work out for them.
The thing about rosters staying together is you have to evolve together, and it's something that we've seen the meta change, we've seen a lot of the patch notes, we've seen a lot of stuff come in, so I'm curious if they're going to be any bit more innovative or whether we're going to see a lot of the same. Goku's been around a while, we kind of know what to expect of him. Has his individual game evolved with the team?
Yeah, we'll find out in a bit. And on the other side, of course, we have Murloc Geniuses. Look at Fury sporting that fantastic Murloc afro, what's it? It's Mohawk there with the logo in the background. Of course, it is Murloc Geniuses, our current reigning North American champions. And even someone like Jun, for example, has really stood out. He stood out at the previous NA regional, and even someone like Bakery, of all people, on Twitter would say he is right now the best support in North America. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I'll give him that.
Okay.
But for real, Murloc Geniuses right now they just look so polished at the last event. It looks like they were the ones who understood the meta the best, and they played the best of any of the teams synergistically. No one else really came close, and they had the best drafts for the patch.
We talked about this last night. Me, you, and Dredd all sat together, and we wanted to talk about and highlight the points of why they were so good. I mean, it was surprising that they came out and won, but then when we had a chance to watch them, we took a look at the players, and on all levels, they look really, really good.
I mean, overall, when we saw it in the North American Regional #1 for fall, it really looked like Chthon Look was shining through on his Zagara, for example, always letting him have it. Zagara hasn't really fallen off in the current meta, but this is something that we want to get onto, which is the current patch we're playing on. We're seeing a lot of Auriel, we're seeing even the potential rise of Hammer here, which... there are some people out there that are excited about and some people that are not so excited. She can be a pain to deal with.
I think you're going to see a lot more Hammer than you've probably ever seen before. Whether it will be early or whether it will be later in the groups, I think you're going to see Hammer, Oriel, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of Medivh coming to North America.
Finally. I mean, we've been talking about Medivh since he came out. All the pros were like, oh, wow, this hero's crazy. Casters are like, when are we going to see this? When are you guys going to feel comfortable enough to actually play that hero? And finally, I think the teams have had long enough to adapt to Medivh that you're going to see insane Medivh play and the strategies developed against it.
Yeah, you couldn't make me happier when it comes to Medivh. Of course, when we were watching the European Regional over in Gamescom, we saw ADRD playing it with varied degrees of success, but that's probably because of the skill level of the teams as a whole. But when he's playing it, it looks scary. It warranted respect bans. So it can be deadly to deal with. Of course, make sure to join the conversation on Twitter with the hashtag HGC. That one's for you, of course. And make sure to tweet us who you think is going to be winning our first game as well here between Murloc Geniuses and TNC. And J-How, you're loving it, man. I can't help it.
HGC.
HGC.
Hashtag HGC.
How do you say it?
HGC. HGC.
It's fine, whatever. I'll just ignore you for now. Okay, so we will have our first games coming up in a little bit, and our Infernal Shrines will be our first map as well here between the two. And actually, to be honest, as much as we were mentioning like the potential rise of Hammer, it's actually not a bad map for something like a Hammer, right?
Hammer's very well protected on this map, I would say. You could get flanked on this map, it feels like, but Hammer's mines actually protect very well here. Oh my gosh, we see this draft has started.
Of course, boys, let's go into the draft now, powered by Oros. Of course, for game number 1, TNC versus Murloc Geniuses. Auriel already out of the gate. A lot of people are touting her as a tier 1 support, J-How.
I think when I had a chance to talk to all the teams, when I watched scrims before, when I watched everything, there was so much Auriel play that it seemed like it's Rhaegar Auriel in 1 or 2, and then Uther's kind of there whenever needed. And look at this. They are coming out firing.
Is this Korea? Is this Korea? Is this happening?
Murloc Genius is coming out with a draft that seems like it's perfectly suited for this new meta. We were kind of talking about the Auriel Cho'Gall combination when we first saw Auriel come out. That empathic link talent on Auriel to allow her to store hope based on damage taken. Fantastic on a huge health pool like Cho'Gall. That is, one of the things we were looking at going into this tournament. And Murloc Geniuses in the very first game, right out of the gate in the draft, is saying, TNC, you cannot deal with this.
Jeez, already this draft gone wild. Medivh getting banned out, and Tychus obviously a brilliant answer to deny the idea of them chunking down Cho'Gall's health.
I mean, I'm a little bit questioning the first pick, Li Ming. I mean, I never really liked Li Ming this early on this map in particular, but maybe they're just worried about not being able to have it. That was their first pickup. But now they're staring down at Cho'Gall with an Auriel there. Li Ming looks even tougher going forward.
Li Ming is not very good against Cho'Gall. He just has way too big of a health pool, and he can get on Li Ming and she can't get away. That charge is so dangerous for her.
That's a really good point that you bring up. Most of what Li Ming is about blowing up a target very quickly, and then you have periods of ineffective damage, right? So that is a very, very good point that you bring up there. And as you say, on the shrines, it's not great. Leoric's going to come in here for a double warrior setup, drain some of that life there from Cho'Gall.
I just can't get over how quickly Murloc is to just unleash this combo of Auriel Cho'Gall. Just right away coming out guns blazing.
Shows confidence.
It shows a lot of June has been, when I had a chance to sit and watch their scrims, I'm not sure if I watched him play any other hero other than Auriel.
Wow.
This is the kind of counter we would expect, though, to a Cho'Gall. TNC immediately responds with a Leoric Monk. Now that Tychus is in the meta, you have another hero you need to ban out if you want to play Cho'Gall. You cannot deal with Tychus, and people have always said, Leoric Monk, that % health damage demolishes Cho'Gall. But I think the Crystal Aegis from Auriel is going to be insane to mitigate the Monk 7-sided strike, because now you have Molten Shell and Auriel's Crystal Aegis. How are they ever going to land that sustained damage onto Cho'Gall?
Precisely.
The amount of heals that are going to come out as well are going to keep him alive. Them alive? Him? Them? But either way, I'm actually curious what they're going to have on the back line. Obviously, like the old meta says that when you have Cho'Gall, you need to have another warrior on the front line to help you control. But are they being innovative? Of course, you have Auriel, who has area heals. And now I wonder if that's something that they're going to try and supplement that front line, and how they're going to at least have one big damage dealer on the back.
I seem to remember it was MVP Black in Super League that ran a similar comp and had a Muradin along with it, if I believe. Falstad added on for extra damage behind it, and then obviously Battle Control, just in case Cho'Gall gets in a little bit of trouble, is going to be a very, very good addition to this, right, Dunk?
Absolutely. Falstad is a great follow-up damage dealer onto this composition, but the thing that's really crazy to me is that we haven't seen Zagara yet in this draft. Murloc Geniuses is known for running Zagara. Cawthon is insane on that hero, and we just have not seen it yet, whereas normally it's a first pick, first ban situation.
All right, looking for a final pickup now. Murloc Genius is here. Do they go with a tank to supplement it, or do they just go for extra burst? Because the thing is Cho'Gall with Auriel, as you've already mentioned, with Crystal Aegis, with Molten Core as well, it just survives for such a long time. It is a hindrance.
I think when we see Murloc Geniuses this weekend, they're going to be the most innovative team here.
It looks like it already. I mean, the thing is that they've got all the wiggle room in the world because they're already qualified, right? Whoa.
Wow.
I don't think that was something I expected. We've talked about Auriel as a secondary support, and not with Rhaegar, though. That seems really weird.
Is Jake going to be the happiest person alive? And is this going to be a bloodlust? I don't know. I'm hopeful, but it would be... I mean, It's interesting.
Auto attack damage Falstad plus Bloodlust, is that the dream?
Maybe. I mean, the front line is good enough for them to go auto attack Falstad and then chunk it down potentially, right?
I'm curious. Doug, I want to see on this side. Okay, we have Monk and Leoric. Do they need some type of giant killer type hero to try? Is this enough damage, or do they need to bring more firepower to this fight?
They
now?
need more firepower. They have to have something. They don't have enough damage. You look at that percent health and you think, oh, that'll be enough to deal with Cho'Gall, but it's just not. The Ancestral and the Aegis is too much. Picking up that Raynor, I do like it, but I'm worried about TNC's map control overall. You know, that Raynor doesn't bring very good wave clear. ETC doesn't contribute anything. They really only have the Leoric that deals well with the waves, and it's just going to be difficult for them to deal with the Falstad split pressure, I think.
What an exciting draft to start off the tournament. I mean, if this is a prelude of things to come as a whole, then, well, this is going to be exciting. There is Jun on screen here for Murloc Geniuses. Again, made quite the name for himself so far throughout North American Fall Regional #1 and looking to play again. So who is going to be on what? I mean, obviously Jun is probably going to be on the Oriel here to kind of support and help on out here, but who's running the Rhaegar?
Well,
what are they going to do with
I actually wonder if they're going to put June on Rhaegar and maybe somebody like Psalm on Oriel. That seems to be, Psalm's kind of like that flex player that kind of picks up whatever, or Psalm's going to be Gaul or Caterpillar. We talked about Caterpillar last night about how diverse his hero pool is. It's one of the most diverse, as Dredd said, in the world. So I'm actually kind of curious to see what he's going to be playing all weekend.
Cattle will definitely be playing the Gaul in this setup. We used to run Cho'Gall sometimes when he was on our team, and he was really good at the Gaul, so I really do expect him to play that hero. Psalm, like you said, on the Ariel. I think in this situation, because there's a Rhaegar, June will be on the Rhaegar, since that's the more primary support, and then Psalm will play that Ariel, who's almost like the Medivh that he played so well in the qualifiers. It's kind of like the same role, the secondary auxiliary support.
Yeah, and something that we brought up actually on the way here, Jay Howe, was the fact that Oriel, while she does have the kind of utility capability in it, on a map like this, her stun becomes extremely powerful, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you have so many structures built around the shrine, it allows for if you just take the right angle. And there's so much there. I mean, we talked about this last night. We talked about it this morning. There's so much potential value you get out of that knockback stun, especially with the structures there. It's huge.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see how this is going to play out between these two teams. Of course, what a draft to start things off here for North America Fall Regional #2. And, I mean, I've got to ask you, boys, looking at the draft as a whole, what are you expecting from this? Are you expecting Murloc Geniuses to come flying out of the gates here with a win? Who are you looking forward to here?
I think this is all going to come down to Psalm's Ariel play. Is that Crystal Aegis going to block the 7-sided, block the Leoric Drain Hope? And if he nails those, it means that Murloc Geniuses is going to crush team name change.
I think that's spot on. Is the timing on that has to be precise. I mean, we see that team name change, their entire draft was completely reactive, and Murloc Geniuses dominated the draft and led it from the get-go.
Yeah, it definitely had to be, especially even with the start of a Li Ming. You know, where are you going to go from there when it comes to team name change? Going up against what you see at the very beginning in an Ariel and a Cho'Gall from Murloc Geniuses. Let's head over to the Xfinity casting desk with Dredd and Gilly.
Thanks, Caleris, and man, what a draft for game #1. Dredd, usually when we start off a tournament, teams bring in very standard drafts and then start to do crazier things as we get later into the tournament, bring out those strats. But Murloc Genius is opening with Oriel, a double support Oriel even, and Cho'Gall. What do you think, what do you make of that for our meta?
It comes down to like two different things. It's either, number one, it's Murloc Geniuses have way more in store and that they know this is just a strong comp that they can show very early in the tournament, not care, and be able to pull out a win, and then be able to show what they truly value later in the back half of the tournament. But I think the fact that this is the first game of the whole tournament in the first series we see out of these teams, it shows how drastically different our meta has become since we saw in the first regional.
Which is crazy to think because really all it's been is the Oriel patch, and then the patch that came out after that too, and adding in one hero. And yet, suddenly, Cho'Gall, suddenly, Oriel first pick.
Yeah,
that is nuts.
I think what that comes down to is kind of the beauty of what enablers do to the meta. And Tassadar is a prime example when it comes down to that. When Tassadar became relatively strong, as we say that though, a really good stun coming out in the upper half, Psalm is going to be under pressure, and I think he's going to be going down here. So first kill here already for TNC. But again, it's the enablers. Like when things like Tassadar get very good, suddenly Illidan becomes a far better option. Things like that with Ariel and then now the Cho'Gall.
Well, with the Cho'Gall, having him on Infernal Shrines, he's going to be able to throw out a ton of spells. He doesn't have mana. Gall doesn't have to worry about that, so he can spam his spells and be able to clear out those shrines. But looking at Shrine Clear for Team Name Change, along with, as Dunk was talking about, their ability to clear out waves, fairly lacking. I expect that Buds will go into a Calamity build to try to help out with that, but Raynor's still known for that single target. And once Oriole can pick up a blind at 13, both he and Karzim might struggle as well. So what do you think they're going to have to do in those shrine phases? Just go straight for fights early on and then be able to take the shrine after that?
I think the Calamity is definitely going to be a must-have, and whoever gets onto the shrine the fastest is going to be in their favor, especially for TNC. Again, with their limited control that they have, and Murloc thrives in those long, pokey-esque style of fights, so making sure that they min-max their threat over the Skeletal Defenders is absolutely crucial to their composition.
They also have a really great wombo potential with both Entomb and Seven-Sided Strike, but a lot of times when we see that combo, there is a Mighty Gust to zone everyone else away, and the Gust is on Murloc's side. Big stun comes in from Goku again. He's been jumping right on top of both Cho'Gall and Oriole, but they will sustain through that for now. Oriole is going for a different build than we saw Korea take than the brief times that we saw. Going for more damage, but it makes a lot of sense, right? They've got a double support. So she picked up Searing Light at level 1. That will deal some damage along with the heal. So if they are all grouped up, which you can tend to be around shrines, that's going to add to the damage of the team and maybe mitigate the fact that they do have double support.
I like it. It helps the situation that they're going to have that DPS. It's going to help with clearing the shrines. And she has so many opportunities. Again, that's the second stun we've seen out of Psalm already. Oh, but June now under a bit of pressure. A great heal from the Ariel to be able to keep him up. Cattle now getting body blocked out on that Cho'Gall. It goes down to the Li Ming, hitting the missiles there. Is going to give them a two-man kill, and that Skeletal Defenders now being dead even on the 30s. This might be TNC getting up the first Punisher of the game.
Yeah, you've already seen Murloc Geniuses moving away. They lost far too much in that engagement. They're now down about half level, and that will be a Frozen Punisher picked up for TNC as they start to march down this bottom lane along with it. No Sylvanas picked up on this battleground, so that won't be a concern on either side. They still should be able to get towers here and try to make sure that they can start to go up further. And they even Goku jumping in on Koth, 74 down, and that will be another kill for TNC.
And while doing some of the research for this tournament, specifically Koth and Luck, Zagara, he's always known for his Zagara, right?
Yes.
But his fall set play, me and Dunk were a bit critical over Murloc Genius' success in this tournament, largely around Coffin. We know, everyone knows Zagara is great in this tournament, and Falset's his next go-to, and he has under a 50% win rate on that hero. And so I am very afraid that he is going to be a liability. That was only one circumstance we're going to see as this moves on, but throughout this entire matchup and tournament, my eyes are all on him for Murloc's success, and I think that was a prime example. 1 versus 5, risking the Punisher leap, ends up losing his life. That's all it takes to be able to fall behind. Look, everybody said Murloc is going to crush this game. One level lead.
Down.
Before level 10. So already TNC is just stepping up their game.
And a fort. Whereas potentially that would not be an issue. But I also forget that with Cho'Gall, you have one less body. And you still want to try to make sure that you keep and maintain that tri-lane soak throughout. So that has netted TNC 1 fort in the bottom.
And already Li Ming, we do see she's going into a very poke-centric build with the Triumvirate Seeker. I personally would have liked to see the Calamity. I think it's almost a must-have. I recognize that the Seeker is going to gain a lot of value, especially onto the Cho'Gall. You can hit him quite frequently. It's an easy target to be able to get the maximum damage. But again, your Shrine control threat is very limited. Calamity doesn't help in that sense. Calamity helps in that sense. And I think it's still great in the teamfight situations here against Murloc. So I would have liked to see that out of Li Ming, but it's not going to be the case. And we'll see if their Shrine control struggles because of that.
It makes me think, along with the Leoric build, that they are all about bringing down Cho'Gall as fast as possible, because he's going full drain hope. He has hopelessness, that has increased range, that was actually buffed in the last pack. He'll probably go into that more, definitely crushing hope. That's a must-have versus a Cho'Gall. Any warrior often just he will get it anyway, even if it's not a warrior-centered composition. So they'll be building into that. I think that's the game plan for TNC, is once they have Entomb 2, they really can try to burst down Cho'Gall and then just make the rest of Murloc Geniuses leave, and they can worry about the Shrine after.
Yeah, I think I agree completely. It's going to be interesting. We do see now the second Shrine phase is going to be up here on the side of Murloc Geniuses, capturing the middle camp, while we see Shaman Camp on the upper half here. Level lead, closing in towards 10 here for TNC, slowly but surely. They have got a pretty significant advantage here, especially with the rotation advantage that they have onto the Shrine. The fact that nobody's getting this clear, though, they have to min-max their time around these Shrines as fast as they can. Again, their control is not that great, And with the Li Ming going to build she is, the minute we see Cho'Gall move up, I want to see them hyper-focus her down.
Look how fast Murloc Geniuses has caught up in experience, too.
Yes,
they
they've
were
done a good
behind,
job.
but they're still very focused on keeping all of the soak in the lanes. And TNC, while they did steal a lot of the mercenary camps, they had great mercenary camp pressure, that's going to be dealt with. And now, as Murloc's kept everybody in lane, they've caught up in experience, they can get caught up to the heroic abilities, and then they're going to have Crystal Aegis, most likely, as they talked about, to try to help make sure that Cho'Gall doesn't get bursted down in the way that he did.
Yeah, and I mean, their composition kind of thrives as the game moves on to the back half. The Cho'Gall becomes terrifying. It's not that he's good in the early half of the game, and only in the sense that he can absorb just an absurd amount of health, but he becomes far more pokey and just difficult to deal with as the game moves on. So Cho'Gall here, as they move on to the back half of the game, I feel like they are going to start hitting a large amount of spikes. And so the fact that they managed to make up for that one level disadvantage is really great for their success into this matchup. Again, because I think that 14-15 range, suddenly I think we're going to see Cho'Gall, and you're like, how do we kill him?
Well, let's talk about heroic abilities for Cho'Gall. Do you think it's going to be anything crazy? I know you love upheaval.
It's gonna
we
be.
know you love upheaval.
I think beyond so beyond the fact that we see so Ariel with the AoE also having Twisting Nether as an opportunity on the side of Gall, but we see a double Q coming out from Cho'Gall already. It doesn't mean you have to take upheaval, but it means that you're in a more opportunity to set yourself up for perfect positioning to make sure you get a huge upheaval.
Okay.
I would like to see it. I think it's complementary to their composition. They have a lot of opportunities to make big plays outside of that, but again, it's not a must-have. I'm just, I guess, the upheaval fanboy.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they do pull everyone in, they have a lot of area damage.
Yes.
To be able to combo off of that, like you were mentioning, a Sacred Sweep from Oriole is going to be great. They now know that they can even do more area damage with her heal.
Yes.
Because they picked up that talent at level 1. Falstad, too, with hammering. I think he was going into the boomerang build, I believe.
Yes, he was.
So that's going to be even more area damage if they're trying to just burst down that way. If they went upheaval, do you like Twisting Nether then in that case?
I do. Yeah, I think those heroics are just absolutely insane synergy. I don't think that they're a must-have. Sometimes I do like the Shadow Bolt volley opportunity that you can move into a composition, but for the most part, I do really I love upheaval for the engage potential that it provides. You have so much poke threat, and the minute your opponents are like, all right, this is our moment, we have to try and take the fight right now, and if we don't, we're going to be in a struggling position, and upheaval comes in, and you're like, and this huge guy is all over me. I don't know how to get rid of this ogre, especially people like Raynor. I mean, he's just like, oh, well, he's like, this is like, that's my kill target, but I don't want to be in melee range of him. So the whole time, without having any mobility, he's just trying to run away, and it just puts you in such a great position. And then synergy you can get even with Aegis. It puts you in a position to where, let's say the Cho'Gall is getting hyper-focused, Rainer's going in, everything's happening. Right before he dies, if he upheavals, you Aegis right out of it, and suddenly you see just an absurd amount of damage happening to everybody. I think there's a lot of ways to approach the fights, and each one of them is synergistic, so I like it.
Yeah, I think that's why we saw Raynor pick up Give Me More at 1. Like, if this is the potential, I'm going to need to hopefully get that extra self-healing enough to run away or until Karzim can come in. Because, I mean, he will be just relying on Karzim's heal. He's definitely going 7-sided strike. So there is no palm, even though we've seen Tiger JK go palm play before.
Yeah, I like the 7-sided opportunity. They have a lot of prime for it. The most important thing is when it comes to the composition on the side of TNC is that they need to obviously be aware of the Cho'Gall, but if they're going to all in the Cho'Gall, they need to be successful. I think that's it sounds so straightforward, but there are so many situations where you pick an all-in composition, like Toronto compositions are a simple example. You set up the combo, you all in, you hit the Lunar Flare, you've got the mark on the target, but if you aren't successful at getting that kill, that counter engage is insane on the side of your opponents because that is so many cooldowns burnt. And the same thing exists on the side of TNC. If they are not successful because their comp is now catered towards dealing with Cho, and there's a lot of tools to make sure Cho doesn't die, but let's say like they do commit to it. If they aren't successful, I feel like Murloc's just going to lick their lips, throw down the upheaval, and just go, this is it. And it's going to get ugly.
Well, guys, thank you for bearing with us. We're just making sure all settings are set up, but we're going to be getting back into the game soon. This is the game number 1 between Murloc Geniuses and TNC. First game of the day in 5 amazing series, but here we go. Getting back into it. We've got a shrine just about up and heroic abilities. We're going to get to see those very soon from each side.
Level 9 XP for both teams, almost dead even here. Rotation advantage and skeletal defender advantage to TNC. It looks like we're going to see Murloc Geniuses just give it up, accept the fact that they don't need the objective for now, worry more about the 10. And again, their game, I personally feel like they have a late game composition. I don't mind that they're deciding to just play a little bit more passive in the early half of the game.
But TNC's late game is pretty good too, at least with Raynor being able to scale up with his damage, get Giant Killer later on as well. Do you think Murlocs are at all concerned with that?
Yeah, they should be a bit, but I think that comes down to positioning and how smart they are with it. They should be all right. Raynor is absolutely terrifying, but again, they have like 3 fail-safes.
Yeah.
You have Aegis,
Molten Block
you've got Molten
13.
Block, you've got the dash capabilities, Ancestral Healing, and Gust. Like, if Raynor is your biggest fear by the back half of this game, you're doing it wrong.
That's true. There's a big stun, and they get Cho'Gall out of there.
Bad.
He has used a Shadow Bolt Volley. It will also be Hammer of Twilight. So we were completely wrong on the heroic abilities.
I'm just an Upheaval fanboy. I don't know. Every single time I'm like, you know what? I really like Upheaval here. They're like, you know, we're just going to go with the Hammer. It has an absurd amount of damage, but again, I just feel like they're comped just so well with some of the other tools here as the Punisher now and 3/4 level advantage here for TNC, 2-4 advantage over their opponents, and right now have had pretty much complete control of the game.
Right, TNC have gotten another fort, but Murlocs aren't that far behind, and they've shown that they have no problem catching up in experience, especially since they have Falstad, who can mitigate the issue of having Cho'Gall be one body to soak in lane. And Falstad's been constantly soaking on the outside, so it's not the end of the world. Fury maybe even dashing in here, gets caught. There is a Tomb, followed by Crystal Aegis. The 7-sided strike was stopped a little bit, but a Mosh Pit to follow behind it. Ancestral Healing has to be used, and they had so many ways of keeping Cho'Gall alive through that.
Yeah, and the Shadow Bolt Volley now coming in. Tiger JK is under a bit of pressure. Good barrel roll into Gus is going to isolate him. He tries to dash, but it's almost nowhere. 300 HP, and slowly but surely, June will confirm the bite there going down. Also, I apologize for calling the Entomb the Upheaval there. But now, yeah, it's such a great team fight. And again, that's what I was talking about. Their comp has so many fail-safes that it's just like, you have to be absurdly efficient and smart with how they decide to commit. Because again, they went for the Cho'Gall. It didn't start working out. It didn't work out. There was the Ancestral, there was the Aegis, and then they're like, this is it. We're just going to go. Because so many resources are worried about dealing with Cho.
A big thing we noticed for TNC in the last regional was that sometimes they can get very panicked with the synergy of their heroic abilities when they start to lose. That time, things were timed out really well. They didn't get the kill though. So I'm hoping that they won't start to panic, won't start to worry and overlap those, because that is going to be super detrimental in an already difficult to execute wombo combo.
Yeah, and I mean, it's in a position too where what they, like each game that you play, you need to be learning as you're playing it. And I think that just showed, that team fight specifically just showed that they're in a position to where if they only worry about single target CCing the Cho'Gall and committing to him, it's not as easy as it looks. They need to be more worried about when we get Cho'Gall, if we're going to mosh Cho, there has to be another target. It has to be an Ariel or any of the other targets actually, except for probably, I think Falstead's probably the best just because Gus can disengage. But no longer can they worry about, all right, here's the Cho'Gall, how can we burn him down? Because it wasn't pretty. And it's those minor lessons that as long as you take them as not like panicking moments, but you're like, all right, next time we just don't do that. And then they're going to be in a good position. But if they don't, I think we're going to see the same thing over and over again here.
Well, Murlocs are now at 13. Heroic abilities are all almost up 6 seconds until Mosh Pit, and we may see TNC try again. Murlocs, meanwhile, they're happy to just continue to poke around at these friends. They know they have area damage, and Leoric has already taken a bunch of hits.
This is insane, the amount of healing here from Ariel. Though Drain Hole, the Entomb actually coming out here. Aegis and the Gus as a response. Cawthon is taking a bit of damage, but Cho'Gall doesn't care.
Molten Block to follow up to, he's down 13, but Goku, great job. He goes in, he waits for his Mosh Pit, but still he was low. He got taken down. Leoric will follow. And again, Murloc Geniuses are starting to win these team fights handily.
But again, we see the same situation. Everybody was worried about Cho'Gall. They don't care about anybody else on the roster. Their composition is so panicked about that. This game is going to get out of control. If they make that decision one more time, they're going to be in a position where I don't think they can come back. Unless they completely wipe their mentality. I know that seems a bit radical here considering the fact that we're only 3/4 in, and it seems like TNC's had the upper hand.
Oh, what a beautiful dash. Leoric, though he was Wraith walking away, Buds might be in trouble. The Punisher was on the hunt to try to take out that juicy Li Ming, but he stays alive. They're going to try to start poking this down. But Murloc Geniuses, they have the ability to maybe get aggressive on this if they want to. They at least want to make sure that they get this 4th so they can start to get ahead in experience.
Yeah, and you see the dash there coming out from Murloc Genius's Caterpillar and Cho'Gall going in. And so one thing as well, the Drain Hope going on to Cho'Gall with having the empathy on the side of Ariel to be able to get the link between the two to be able to get that drain. She is almost getting her heal at full value as fast as he's getting the drain. So it's like, it's completely counterintuitive to what their goal was to be able to, if anything, it's helping her because Ariel's heal is AoE, whereas Leoric's damage is only going to be the single target here. That was when I was looking at the shrine, that was the number one thing I noticed, is they were constantly draining, but she's legitimately,
she's like, thank you for the energy,
yeah, she's like, all right, so everybody group up, we're all full health again. And then he's like, well, my cooldown's back up, I'm going to throw on a Cho'Gall again. And he goes, all right, we can keep doing this all day because I'm winning this trade.
And at 16 as well, once they pick up Reservoir of Hope, every time you heal with a max energy Ray of Heaven, it only increases the max energy you can have. She's going to get to a point where everybody is unkillable. They're already at that point. She can start using it for damage if she wants. Just, hey, we're good. We're healed up. I'll just take out Raynor instead.
Yeah, it's a rough position for TNC. Their mentality and how they approach the game needs to be completely different. One thing that they do have going for them is just the lack of engage on the side of Murloc Geniuses. If they were not so far behind, they could look to try and posture around bottom keep, for instance, and just get a bit of free harass and poke because their composition excels in those situations without the minions. But again, with how far behind they are in the experience right now, they are pretty much playing Murloc Geniuses' game left and right.
You can see the difference in the ability to clear out waves because when Murlocs got behind, it was earlier in the game, but they were very quick to catch up in level. But TNC, they're struggling to get to 16 so they can have a fair fight over the next shrine because they know that teams can start to snowball this battleground very heavily if they keep losing shrine after shrine. ETC gets stunned into the corner. He is going nowhere. Hammer of Twilighted into Oblivion, and ETC drops. They did use Shadow Bolt Volley for
fireworks, you know, that was celebration. ETC's dead!
Woohoo!
We did it! But now 16 tier advantage, they have a time advantage over their opponents, 15 seconds until the next shrine is going to be spawning, which means we have a 10-second advantage on the side of Murloc Geniuses, a 16 tier advantage for only a short period of time. But right now the game is completely going into their favor, not only covering the fact that, again, we saw in the last fight, all they were worried about is Cho'Gall. That's not happening. I don't know if the Aegis or the Molten Block was enough to convince you, or the Gust that came out, but one of those was enough to go, guys, this isn't working. Hopefully they adjust. But if not, I think this is going to be real ugly here for TNC.
I love that it was just one after the other, too, right? Like, Aegis was there. Everyone else from Murlocs was like, good luck, Cho'Gall. He's like, don't worry, guys, I've got this. And then Molten Block afterward. It's several seconds, 5 seconds, where you can't touch Cho'Gall, and that's enough to get rid of the Entomb, and then everyone can re-engage. But 16 is here for both teams. It is Reservoir of Hope, so if they want to start using that to get max heals from Oriole, or even pairing that with the level 1 Searing Light and having a lot of area damage from her from the back line, either way, they're going to be getting a lot out of it.
Wow, the stun coming out, essential healing in the clip. Not going to matter. Murloc Geniuses there are going to end up losing 2 people to Cho'Gall. Entomb going on to Psalm. We does have Aegis available, is going to be popped. Stacking the heroics there. That was a huge play, an absolute must-have for TNC to come back.
They caught him before everyone could be in position to set up and save the Cho'Gall. Did the exact same thing.
I'm just so confused. Go ahead.
I was confused too, but that will be a shrine for TNC. It's exactly what they need to come back in this game.
The one thing I'm so confused about is the fact that Murloc Geniuses we knew they had a 10-second advantage when it comes to getting on the shrine. Yes, they were a little bit late. They were letting their opponents get 16 tier, which was kind of inevitable during a certain amount of time, but they were patient. And then when they do decide to get on the shrine, they completely left Cho'Gall. Everybody backed out because the minion wave was coming through. Everyone backed out, and Cho'Gall was the only one left alone. And I'm very confused because I feel like their composition has so much brawling and skirmishing potential. They've almost never been in a position to where things have hurt. And yeah, we now losing the Ariel, that staggered death is even worse as the Punisher's going to be moving in. This is a colossal tempo swing for TNC.
Murloc Geniuses need to take a deep breath and calm down because they cannot stagger deaths like that from here on out, or this is going to run away from them. They do have a little bit of a mercenary push in the bottom lane that might at least drain some towers of ammo. Are they waiting?
They're waiting it out for everybody to group up and maximize the time, but nobody's clearing on the bottom half, and they're allowing Ariel to be able to come back. With that decision, TNC, I don't know how I feel about that. If you're going to be patient, I would have liked to see them be a little bit more hasteful, again, because Ariel is going to be up in the amount of time before the leap coming in. They need to wait for the leap. When it comes out, 7-sided strike and immediately kill that target because we have 5 seconds before Aegis is going to come into play.
They don't
look at that. They aren't even going to bait it.
All right, here they go. He's gonna jump in on Cho'Gall. 7-sided strike follows. Molten block to keep Cho'Gall alive through that. Hyperion is moving through slowly, and that's Crystal Aegis following up in Tomb. They've already lost Leoric as well, so that's one down, and Goku is being poked. Poked very good from Murloc Geniuses. They've got Gall, they have Falstad, and they will take this down, not even losing a keep, so they have been able to sustain.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we look at when Murloc Geniuses have all of their defensive tools available, it just looks very convincing. I'm in favor of TNC. Justin did end up falling down, but again, Leoric not that bad. He's going to be coming back to life. Shaman Camp pressuring upper half. Race to 20 in favor of Murloc Geniuses.
Yep.
So slowly, this game has just been so surprisingly back and forth. I thought TNC was going to just very quickly fall behind here, but now Murloc Geniuses show that their decision-making being a little bit questionable as well.
And maybe being surprised by the damage that could be done early on, not being set up to answer. And again, Justin's going to be here with Entomb. They blind him so that his basic attacks aren't doing anything. That's a 13 talent for Oriole. Cawthon's flying in, and they've used Shadow Bolt Volley to push away all of TNC. Cawthon coming around the side, maybe looking for a good gust if someone was too far out, but not quite seeing it just yet.
They need to try and force one of the defensive tools on the side of Murloc Geniuses, whether it's Gust or Aegis or Molten Block. One of them is necessary. Goku is under a ton of pressure. Cleanse coming out, but it's not going to matter. Absolutely deleted. The cow is made into beef at this point. Now Justin is trying to withdraw, but I don't think he's going to be able to either with his Eve down, and that is a 2 for nothing.
That Oriole damage is getting insane. Yep. All because she picked up Searing Light at 1, and they have a double support, so she can be a little more flexible. Sam is showing us that Oriole also an assassin.
Is also an assassin. That is, and it gains so much. Oh man, Cawthon taking a lot of damage as well on the side of Buds. But right now with 20 tier over their opponents, Buds and TNC need to be very, very patient. They're trying to make sure that they minimize their losses, but are risking possibly a bit too much as the bottom shrine now up.
20 tier is here for Murloc Geniuses, and it's going to take TNC a while to get it. So I love that Murloc Geniuses are backing off. They're going to delay even longer by grabbing the Khazra here. And those are going to push along with the ones they already have in the mid lane. So then they can get set up, start to poke down and take out Skeletal Defenders, and make it so TNC has to maybe come in late once they have 20, once they've cleared things out, and Murloc Geniuses can either safely poke the rest of the Skeletal Defenders they need, or force TNC to get a little hasty.
Yeah, this bottom shrine with the bottom front wall already taken out, this could be a win condition here for Murloc Geniuses. And now with 18 Skeletal Defenders, Justin ends up missing his W. That is a huge cooldown. You can't miss those when it comes to the shrine control here in the early half of this. They have 20 advantage, but look at their health bar. TNC is just getting poked down. We see the Shadow Bolt Volley almost confirming a kill here, and that's no defensive tools used yet. Justin barely going to be able to survive, ends up falling down. This is looking very bad for TNC. And
very good for Murloc Geniuses. They're max health. They have healing wards even down to keep them nice and healthy. Arcane Punisher. Buds has to jump away, but here comes the fly in the aggressive Gust. They're looking for way more kills. They're looking to end this game. Cawthon 1v1 Buds in the back will make sure that they take out Li Ming. 2 more, another one to follow. That's still 3 people down, and Raynor, How is going to try to get out of this, but man, that damage is insane.
I mean, that's it. With 50 seconds down, the Punisher moving through, I don't think there's any situation where they're going to be able to stop this. But we're going to have to find out, I guess. It's just going to look very convincing here. As they end up moving towards the keep, Murloc Geniuses, what looks like the bait towards mid is not even going to matter at this point. Cho'Gall can just do so much when it comes to the core. They have no tools to be able to peel. Really good attempt here from TNC, but again, that game looked so back and forth for a moment, and then just, it seems like every from Murloc Geniuses were able to confirm so many kills as well. Putting up a pretty good showing for the Cho'Gall Ario. We've seen it once or twice before in the past from some of the other regions. This is the first time we've really gotten to experience it in North America, but it was a very commanding force in this first game.
That was GG for Murloc Geniuses in game number 1. Looking very good, especially once they have their heroic abilities. Maybe one fight, that one where they lost Cho'Gall up in the top, not going their way. Got a little shaky, lost Oriole too, but overall, showing that they understand this meta just as well as they understood the last one. But we're going to get our analyst thoughts at the panel.
Thank you very much. As Murloc Geniuses take game number 1 here on Infernal Shrines with quite the interesting composition, to say the least. Of course, they're Cho'Gall having a bit of a rough time at the beginning of the game, but then as the game goes on, we all know full well how powerful Cho'Gall can be as he gets more and more talents.
Absolutely. Early game, I was really concerned when Murloc Geniuses lost that first Cho'Gall death and got so far behind in experience, but TNC did not capitalize. They all 5 went to that second shrine on the top of the map and gave up the whole map of Soak. Murloc Geniuses gets 10, and then suddenly the game is so much harder because of that invulnerability on Cho'Gall.
I remember you looked and you're like, wait a minute, how did they catch up on experience? It's like, well, they just kind of gave it up, as you just said, and I think that was like kind of a turning point. You know, they still got the Punisher, but they didn't get any value of it. Leoric kind of died early around that keep, and then it showed that the power of Cho'Gall Oriel is incredibly real.
Very much so. Let's take a look at some of the highlights now. As we joined the fight at a 13 versus 13, and this is where we saw Murloc Geniuses gain far more momentum.
The double invulnerability here is so insane. Cho'Gall is just invulnerable for the whole fight, and then all of a sudden, okay, ETC even tries to land a Mosh, gets the cleanse. It's just there were so many tools that basically made Cho'Gall not a target. And that's the thing. When Cho'Gall is in the game, the entire game revolves around Cho'Gall, whether you can kill him or not. And it was clear TNC just didn't have the firepower.
I've got to ask, Jay Howe, is one of the reasons why Rhaegar is such a good pick because they need a cleanse on a Cho'Gall against something like an ETC, etc. here?
I feel like that definitely came into consideration. This moment right here was really cool because Dunk's over here and he's like, yeah, he's like, they're going to win. He's like, watch, they're just going to like fly and gust over. They did just that. So that's actually really cool replay that we got to see there because it just played out perfectly. It just seemed like Murloc Geniuses, as you said, they had a little bit of trouble early. But then they just kind of honed it in. They realized, hey, wait a minute, guys. We're Murloc Geniuses. We have the superior comp, at least in our eyes. They made it work, and I think the cleanse was definitely a huge contributing factor. Aegis, Molten, cleanse, I mean, Cho'Gall is going to be just fine.
Plus, we saw that empathic link value was insane. When Cho'Gall was tanking the Punisher on top, after TNC got that second one, he was just tanking the Punisher, and Ariel was like, oh, my hope bar is full, heal. Oh, my hope bar is full, heal. And like just dropping fat heal bombs. And it was insane.
Yeah. Next map is going to be Sky Temple between these two, so looking forward to that one here. And looking at how Murloc Geniuses won that, with as much as, you know, they had a little bit of a rough start, they had a very strong presence in the later stages of the game. Is there anything to really stop them continuing running things like that, like throughout the entire tournament? Because it looks powerful.
It did look powerful. I think that it is going to be somewhat map dependent. It's something that Murloc Geniuses, they were one of the people that ran Tychus a lot in the last regional, which was just 4 weeks ago. And we saw Caterpillar a lot on Tychus. And I think this is one of the maps that he tended to lean towards. So I think we'll see a little bit different comp. It might be a little bit more map specific. But I think that Murloc Geniuses has well in hand what they know that they want to run.
The thing is, if you're banning in a manner to eliminate this Ariel Cho'Gall style strategy, are you leaving open Zagara for Cawthon? Are you leaving over basically everything that Murloc wants to do? So it's kind of like you can't win either way. You either give him Cho'Gall Ariel or you give him Zagara, and you can't win the Zagara matchup.
Is Ariel something that we could see eventually throughout the tournament get banned? Like even in first tier? Because if you take that away, maybe there's the potential you can actually disable some of that comp quite heavily.
I mean, the whole thing is that everything that I've seen over the last few weeks between looking at scrims and talking to players is that they're valuing Oriel as high as they value Rhaegar right now. And I think that you will see a lot of early parties. So that's a good question. I'm wondering if we'll see a first ban Oriel at any point this weekend.
Maybe. All right, let's get into draft number 2 here, powered by Auros, as we have team name change versus Murloc Geniuses for game number 2.
So right away, this draft looks completely different. Team name change on Sky Temple has to respect the Zagara, immediately bans that out. No surprise there. Murloc Geniuses' response with the ETC, pretty standard tank. I'm not sure why they valued that so highly currently.
They might have something up their sleeve. That's what I'm wondering about. Could this be a Medivh type map? I mean, I don't want to put anything out of question. Obviously, when you leave Falstad open on Sky Temple, it's definitely something you're going to look at picking up. You know, Dread, during that broadcast, talked about the fact that Cawthon Luck doesn't play Falstad as well as he plays other heroes, so maybe that's something they were willing to give up, but they also picked up Li Ming in the process.
All right, 2 picks coming in for team name change now. What do they have to craft here going up against a Falstad Li Ming?
The primary point of concern for me for team name change is they have this Thrall and they've banned out the Zagara, so I think they're hinging on control of this bottom lane, so they need to find a way to actually get an advantage there. The thing about the Thrall-Falstad matchup is Thrall doesn't win hard enough to get your team an edge. Like if you have a Zagara in that lane, you actually win the bot lane and it gives you pressure. Thrall doesn't really pressure the wall, so they're not going to get an experience advantage even though they invested a ban and a first pick on that lane.
Taking the Muradin. What else is like ideal here for them, Jay Howe? What do you think?
TNC, you know, I had to talk to Justin, and he is their drafter. And I asked him, you know, like, what are you guys capable of? Are you guys capable of running double warrior comps? Are you able to be flexible enough? He said yes. Now, we saw them run the double warrior comp last game. Now, obviously, that was very special circumstances, but we saw Murloc Geniuses control the entire draft last time. And I'm curious if TNC is going to be able to get what they want this time around, or whether they're going to be forced into something, because they're not a bad team. I think they showed that they have the possibility to take down or at least take a game off. It's just a matter of, can they dictate the draft the way that they want to?
Uther going to get picked up here, so still highly prioritizing the idea of Uther in now a different support meta with Ariel still around.
Pretty surprising, actually, that the Uther got picked up here over the Ariel. You know, Team Name Change doesn't have a great Uther target yet. We've been talking about the Greymane before. He's fallen out of flavor a little bit with the changes recently. He has to go more of a cocktail build, or at least some range emphasis.
True.
So he's not as good of a D-Shield target. So I don't know what Team Name Change is going to pick up that's going to give them the Divine Shield value that you need to actually win these fights.
It kind of comes back to, I mean, you were saying about the Oriole maybe coming in there. It comes back to the level 1 talent. Again, you're providing the healing and providing the damage. With the amount of melee focus we see in today's current meta, surely it would have synergized really well with a Thrall and a Muradin going ham at the front and still being able to do damage while sealing them, right?
Absolutely. When you take that Searing Light and you can drop a heal on your melee and damage their target, it's so much easier to pick up those kills. It seems like it's just that little bit of extra damage that you end up needing a lot of the time, and the fact that it can come from your support is insane. Now, Murloc Genius is banning out the Lunara. So they have to be thinking solo healer, but Team Name Change already has Uther, and usually you see the team that's playing against Uther wants that Lunara.
I think that what they're looking at is the fact that on the other side is Buds. He normally plays the Li Ming. He plays a lot of Li Ming. And then they turn to Lunara as kind of the alternative. So I wonder if they're kind of focusing on him, kind of limiting his hero pool, because Falstad, Li Ming, Lunara all off the board. It takes a lot away from what Buds would be running.
I have to ask, a medic ban coming in on second tier here. What do you make of it?
I'm honestly kind of flabbergasted. It seems like Murloc Geniuses hasn't shown any preference towards medic, and their composition doesn't really look like a medic comp.
Do you think they were afraid of any type of like cheese comp possibly coming out, kind of like the backdoor material still being on the board, something like that? I mean, you and Dreadnought knew something about that not too long ago.
We have been known to run the Tyrael medevac a time or two.
Yeah.
And you can definitely absolutely destroy buildings with that, but I don't know if in your first match of the day that's really what you're banning out. I feel like Team Name Change had to pick a ban that you can win, you make them play standard, but worse. Right. I don't think you expect them to cheese you, immediately.
Sylvanas coming in kind of gives rise to what you were saying before about even control of that bottom lane, right?
I think it does give control to the bottom lane, plus it also fits into exactly what they're used to playing. So it's a comfort pick, plus it's a little bit of map control. Your thoughts on the bottom lane?
This is much better. If they actually manage to get that 3-man in the bottom lane and do some damage, it can be huge before that second temple. But their last pick, it does end up being Greymane. So it is that Greymane Divine Shield target, but it's just not as powerful as it used to be. And I'm not sure it will be enough to kill this Murloc Geniuses squad that has the protection of Gust.
Yeah.
You have Johanna, who is so hard to dive her backline through that blind. How is Team Name Change actually going to kill these targets?
It made me think that they were hiding something for the last pick, because why would they pick Johanna before last here?
Oh man, Murloc Genius is just the flexibility of Caterpillar alone allows them to do whatever they want right here.
Right.
You can expect Cawthon on Falstad, and then you've got Li Ming on the backside. Then Johanna's going to be on Fury, and then I feel like this is a cattle pick. Tychus might fit in here, but I almost feel like they might want to try and wow. Okay.
Zeratul, huh? I mean, that is not a hero that any of those players are really known for on Murloc Geniuses. I mean, you were mentioning Cattle's wide hero pool. Do you think he's going to be the one on Zeratul this game?
That's a good question. I want to say that when we looked at this, Cawthon might have a few games on Zeratul, but I almost feel like Caterpillar is going to be the one. I like Zeratul on this map. I think this is probably his best map because he has area to work and the Void Prison, and you normally see teams on the defensive end tend to spread out a little bit more, allows you to capitalize on that a bit more.
Yeah.
But how it fits into their comp is a big question.
It feels like the more divide and conquer based style of like, will VP2 try and do damage elsewhere, compared to the current European style of like, we're gonna go Zeratul Jaina and blow you up instantly, which is always fun to watch, I suppose. But do you think we'll actually, with that being said, do you think we'll see any of that this tournament? The potential for big wombos like that, like we saw in Europe?
I think that they were definitely paying attention. And, I actually had this conversation last night. Based on what I've seen, I almost feel like it's either going to be, when it comes to that role when you see Assassins banned out, it's going to be either Jaina or Sergeant Hammer taking that preference. So I think when it gets to that moment, we're going to see if teams are going to be comfortable running a Jaina, a combo, or they're going to be looking at somebody like a Hammer.
This is a far different draft compared to what we saw in game number 1, for sure. I mean, it's a different map anyway, so of course you're going to kind of go a little bit more varied here. But looking at the two lineups as a whole here, Dunk, what do you think? I think TNC's lineup's actually pretty damn strong.
I don't hate TNC's lineup, but I have to say, if this was Greymane from 2 months ago, that lineup is monstrous.
Yeah.
Greymane nowadays, I don't feel like he's going to pack the punch necessary to actually kill his targets, especially because Murloc Geniuses has so much teamfight control with Gust and Void Prison. Greymane's going to be alone. And that's if he even gets the D-Shield, it doesn't get Void Prisoned.
And this is actually something that we should probably highlight for maybe people that don't follow Heroes of the Storm as much or as affluently as from patch to patch to patch. Can you kind of just run us down through some of the changes that Greymane has experienced and then what people are looking to use now?
So before, Greymane was all about the one-shot combo. His Worgen form damage was insane burst.
Yep.
He used that Dark Flight to go into melee range, combo that with an auto attack, swipe, go for the throat, and targets just got eliminated. And we have seen that combination get nerfed heavily in terms of burst damage.
Yeah.
So Greymane is much more about range damage here, and I think it's all going to be on whether he will be able to get the damage he needs onto Li Ming, onto Falstad, and eliminate those targets.
When we look at the changes in particular, though, they've also made changes to his Q. His cocktail is going to be coming out.
Yes.
I feel like they've made it so that he is a little bit more poke-oriented and capitalizing on the work he's able to do. So I think it's definitely going to be different, but still got a chance.
All right, thank you very much, boys. We'll be checking in with you after the series is done. For now, we shall head to the Xfinity Caster's desk with Dread and Gillyweed.
All right, we're back with game number 2, and the first game of this series, the draft was much different. It was all about Murloc Geniuses throwing in Cho'Gall pretty early and dictating, forcing TNC to pick out picks that would respond to that. But this one is a lot more different. It's more both of the teams getting some comfort picks, especially on the side of TNC, but even Murloc Geniuses too, things like Li Ming for Psalm, Johanna for Fury. But looking at this, the best hero, statistically, for TNC is Sylvanas.
Yeah.
And you were talking about how good she is in general.
Yeah, right now she seems to be picked up almost internationally and like really highly valued compared to some of the other heroes, even on maps where she doesn't necessarily thrive. For instance, on Sky Temple, it's not that she's bad. She's good on almost every map, but she excels at ones where you build something. Fury actually not going to be stunned out there by Justing, ended up missing the Storm Bolt, maybe keeping him alive. And that little sneaky snake there. But again, I think Dunk brought it up how none of these players, especially like even Cattle, are not really known for their Zeratul. And I think he's got a lot to prove on that hero. The fact that they are opening up with a pick, he's a great pick. It just comes down to how effectively he can play it as overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Zeratul is one that, of course, he can always win a game for your team with a huge Void Prison, no matter how far behind you are. But Zeratul is very squishy and has to go in and can get caught in the time between Wormhole, or especially before Wormhole is even up before that 13 tier. So we're going to get to see if Cattle has had time to practice and really perfect this hero.
The bot lane here. Gotta love the Thrall 1v1s. A 4-man rotation to the upper half, Justing, and just trying to wear the poke, get the stun out. Ends up barely zoning off Cattle for a short period of time. And controlling this vision is such a huge point, which is why you see those teams kind of posturing around that when it comes to this first Shrine rotation. Again, largely, actually, Fury, you gotta have no passive there. The stun coming out as well. He's gotta be falling down. That is a huge play here for TNC. They need to make sure that they capitalize on that 11-second advantage here when it comes to the shots. Zeratul's gonna be doing his best to try and make sure that they don't get as many as they can, stopping those rotations. But really good job from TNC.
Yeah, I love that they saw Iron Skin was used early on in that and were able to wait out the stun and catch it that time. Also, they're keeping Sylvanas in the lane so she can clear out waves and do a little more damage to structures as well to combo with this mid temple. Looking to see if maybe they can take down a fort from it, whereas normally you don't get to do that.
Yeah, we see them confirming the shots here a bit earlier than on the upper half of the map, which should allow them to possibly make a rotation, look for a couple of picks here. We'll see if they end up going into that. Zeratil's trying to dismount when it comes to control over the vision, as we see happening a bit there, and they are going to make the rotation up, so we'll see if they're going to make anything happen here.
There are only a few shots left, but June is caught. Body blocks are perfect from Justing, and that is another kill. How gets hit by a big Arcane Orb by Som, and Justing is in trouble. He's going to go down too, so that'll be a 1-for-1 in this fight. In the bottom lane, Thrall has been doing a really good job of pushing Falstad back. In fact, he has to go back. He could fly back in, but that's still time where he's been able to burn down some of these towers, which will be great for the next phase too.
Yeah, and that's something that I think a lot of people kind of underestimate was just that whole play on the upper half of the map is only available because there's about 8 shots that we see TNC get on the mid shrine before the top shrine. If you don't capture at the exact same time, one of them is going to be able to confirm, and usually when you get to that 5, 6, the amount of time that it takes to get the rotation worth of seconds of shots, suddenly it becomes, this is a double play, right? They're going to make the rotation up, they're going to be able to get the picks. Yes, Justing overextending pretty much negated every advantage that they got, but still, it's something that on Sky Temple, capping the shrine is very time sensitive, and I think a lot of people ignore that there, and we'll see if it keeps being a trend here when the game moves on.
It all came down to that one kill, too, because Murlocs did want to contest the mid shrine. They wanted to fight, see if they could be the ones to get the kill, but it didn't happen, so they wasted those valuable few seconds instead, rotating to the top. But even with that, they've taken a lot of health from the top 4. So we're seeing them try to push that back. They're responding to Sylvanas, get these bruisers so that later on they can get their own and hope to get the 4 off of that bruiser push.
This is honestly a pretty value play on the side of TNC. I would have liked to see them, rather than only committing 2, commit to 3 and pressuring on the upper half here, because we know the shrine isn't going to be spawning until about that 4:45 range. So they could have abused pushing on the upper half. We know Falstad is going to win a time with Murloc Genius's Knights and stay on the upper half. Ignore him, worry about Giants, then 5-man push with Silva on the bottom half. The Shrine's going to spawn, ignore the upper half, and suddenly you've got a really beautiful rotation on the side of TNC. Now they're going to be struggling in the upper half of the map, and they're going to gain mid-level value on the bottom. So I feel like, again, maybe not getting as much as they could, because next Shrine's phase is just about to spawn.
Well, Greymane was picking up the Giants, so the minute that the bruiser push was finished with Sylvanas, now she's coming down just in time to make it to help these Giants out. So they're getting Sylvanas value in every lane, along with the mercenaries they've picked up. But still, the bruisers have been grabbed for Falstad, and he will be able to bring down that 4, as nobody is left for TNC there. They've got everything to take out this bottom temple.
They ended up doing it a little bit later than I expected them to here, so not gaining maybe too much value, but I love the rotation on the side of TNC. Zeratil is getting a bit of a flank here, but Falstad is getting a lot of pressure. That's going to be a 4 going down to the upper half, getting them a small experience advantage as TNC gets the first couple of shots here down to the bottom, Gilly.
Oh, but the poke from Murloc is great. There's no well here, though, so there's no ability to tap wells, whereas for TNC, they still have their well. So they've got that once for each person, but Som is a beast on Li Ming, and he is landing a lot of these skill shots.
Yeah, he ended up going with Triumvirate over the Dominance, even though he went with the Calamity build, so he is vulnerable. Even if he gets the resets with the Calamity, he's not going to be gaining some of his maximum health here. Bottom shots are now going to TNC that will be able to confirm the bottom 4. Murloc looks like they're posturing to try and mix it in half, and he is just nailing orb after orb here. But the shots are still going to TNC. They're not going to hit a level 10's power strike before their opponents. If they get 1 kill, this could go terribly in favor of Murloc Jesus, but you see that just posturing here is absolutely ridiculous as they close in. That might be, not going to be the kill quite yet. Som is trying to get on the retreat, Gilly. That's the level 10 for them. Are they going to make anything else happen?
Yes.
Yes.
Fury goes down to a 2 kill. Sundering afterwards. Another one. Falstad's down. Only Cattle able to blink over the bridge of death. And TNC, with these great rotations, with their ability to make sure that they got extra damage on that bottom 4, picked up heroic abilities with kills, and they know that there are a few seconds before all of Murlocs are back. They're going to go after this boss.
Yeah, they're going to be able to pick it up for free here. Nobody's going to be able to stop them. Won't do too much, just draw a bit of aggro, use the Sylvanas, and now rotate to the mid lane to be able to try and capitalize on the attention you know your opponent's going to be moving. Put your structural integrity over your opponent. This could be such a beautiful rotation here, but Sylva ends up pulling back in order to get the clear on the upper half of the map there. And you see, again, though, they are trying to make abuse of the fact that Murloc has got so many committed to that boss on bottom.
Well, they did lose a lot in those towers up in the top, but no Sylvanas is here, and Murloc Geniuses just want to go for the fight. We've already used Blessed Shield. They're trying to burn down How, but they aren't going to go as far as an aggressive fly from Cawthon and then follow it up with a gust. So maybe a little bit cautious, scared I'm not sure, maybe it just didn't have a good spot even to go to because it was so small before they would get to their opponent's fort. But they're going to have to get back here and deal with the boss.
Yeah, they end up backing out here. So much harass here. Now Sylvanas has gotten pressure on the upper half of the map while mid is still almost dead as well. TNC is really kind of putting on the clinic for Sky Temple for the time being. He's going to not be chased there by Cattle. I thought for sure Cattle would move in to try and get some harass there, even with Justin showing, but he ends up playing a bit more safe than I guess I expected here. And again, it comes down to, we talked about whether or not he's going to really show that that pick was worth it. Again, he hasn't done anything bad necessarily, but I haven't seen a Zeratul make a play either, right? And he's very good at that early game skirmishing rotations. This is one of his best maps. You can predict the rotations. So I think this next fight, his Void and how effective he is really going to be telling of how good he is on that Zeratul pick.
They're slightly behind in experience, but again, Murlocs have gotten behind in the early game, but been able to find their footing and stay caught up in experience so they can contest this bottom shrine. Looks like both teams want to get into the fight over this one. Nobody is sneaking up to the top, but as long as Cawthon doesn't go down, if they lose this fight, he could try to fly up there. There's a big Void Prison on 2 people. There's Goku, the follow-up Sundering, and the Wailing Arrow on the back line. Cawthon is going to push everyone away and try to help his team reset. Ancestral
and Wave of Force is still available here. And right now, the posture between these team fights are just kind of dancing around one another. Nightcamp pressuring on the upper half. Shots now going over in favor of the TNC.
That's Cawthon's mom on screen right now, showing us how nervous, how nerve-wracking this whole tournament is, right? Yeah. This is a ticket for BlizzCon, and of course, Murloc Geniuses have already secured that, but I talked to Cawthon specifically yesterday, and he said, you know, when we came in originally, we weren't worried. We already had our ticket to BlizzCon, but now that I'm here, I want to win this too, and I love that drive from Cawthon.
Yeah, and I think June actually brought it up in his interview and also talked a little bit to me about it, and it's something I heard from Gale Force in the past, some of their members as well. A lot of these players are not used to having the pressure to win. You're expected to win, and the pressure that exists between we're just going to show up, hopefully it works out, right? Now it's, what is Gale Force doing? When they don't win, you suddenly get around, and I think it's a different type of pressure a lot of guys don't know how to deal with. And I feel like Murloc Geniuses might be one of those teams, because a lot of these guys, they just got the spotlight for the first time ever. They've been around, but nobody's looked at them gone, they're going to be top at this tournament. They're going to come in. We need to see. They need to prove that we are #1 once again. And finally, it's kind of showing. But as I say that, huge Sunder, and Falset is absolutely deleted.
Falset's gone, and the rest of the Murloc Geniuses are trying to get out of trouble. And the Wailing Arrow will hit more, and Rhaegar getting away with 70 health. He's trying to keep in to help Cattle get out too, and he will do so. But still, TNC have been in charge this whole game, and I have to say it, Goku's been on point this game.
Yeah, Goku, personally, I think, outside of some of his laning decisions at times, is probably one of the better thralls in all North America. That being said, I don't think on all the melees necessarily I would put him there, but thrall specifically is something he excels at. He's very efficient with his Sundering, which is something that is an absolute must when you're on that hero, and it's really separated them in this entire matchup. TNC now gaining a full level lead. All 3 forts are going to be eliminated. At this point, it's their game to lose. As long as they play patient, the Void coming out, we do have a Gus available, and how do we dodge it with that dash there on the Greymane?
And Cawthon has barrel rolled away, but still Murloc Geniuses are trying to get a fight before TNC gets 16, but Fury goes down. Ancestral does not hit him.
I mean, well done. Right now, TNC, again, they genuinely just dance around the map. They have structural advantage over their opponents. They have a 2-level lead. This is why I call Sky Temple like kind of the time bomb. You're in a position now, TNC, they never have to take a fight that they don't have an advantage over. Much like Blackheart's Bay, you can get into a situation to where now if your opponent somehow is on the same footing, just get a different shrine. You're always winning that trade every single time. And as long as they understand that and play that patiently here, they're going to be, I personally think they're going to win this game. We haven't seen Cattle do one thing yet on the Zeratul to where I'm like, he's going to be able to turn this around. He's going to be the big playmaker. He's going to get a pick. There's going to be a Void, and they'll stagger the deaths. He's been very
easy to catch
overall,
too.
and even easy to catch at times. So now with 16 tier advantage, we're going to see TNC take complete control over this game.
Yeah, the one aggressive Void Prison they had, Goku was so fast with his follow-up Sundering to make sure that Murlocs could get nothing out of it. And now they are trying to save their keeps. They've lost all of their forts. Only TNC have any forts left. They have such a buffer, even if Murlocs were to win a fight.
This is, please not like this. This is the only way TNC can really throw away their lead, is if they start worrying about this boss too much. If they keep dancing around it, they're going to be sacrificing experience on the map, which is going to allow Murlocs not only to catch up, but it's also legitimately the only major map objective they can single-handedly lose the game off of.
There's a lot of good heroic abilities on Murloc's side.
Yeah, the zoning
deal with
potential.
it.
Void,
Wave of Force.
Wave of Force, and Gust
Yes.
is insane.
And really just Sundering on the other side, hoping for a big Wailing Arrow maybe from Sylvanas if everyone groups up on the point, but TNC haven't dealt with that at all. We've got 2 Temples out, they've picked up Bruisers in the top, so now those will be pushing and maybe making Murlocs have to go up to deal with them.
And now they're going to be rotating down to get the shots. So there's 2 shots. There's one on mid and there's one on bottom half. Bottom half should be able to confirm the keep, I believe, with the structures already removed on the side of their opponents.
Because of the boss.
But again, this seems subtle, but that few seconds of shots that they just missed while their opponents are slowly creeping into 10 is now going to confirm that they're risking a fight on the same footing while they're not going to be able to get the keep for free over their opponents. And we see Cattle move in with the Void.
There's a couple of people on Void, but again, Sundering in the back. Zeratul is gone, but Goku goes down too. Cawthon is trying to push people away. Only Li Ming gets hit by Wailing Arrow, and they're still pretty healthy, Murloc Geniuses are. They've used a lot of heroic abilities. They still have Wave of Force if they want to, again, try to move somebody into them potentially, but they are going to clear out the Giants first.
I would really like to see Justin. He has Avatar still available. Try and get a bait onto their opponents. Confirming the shots is all they need to do at this point. Again, they are the ones threatening the keep over here. Justin taking a bit of harass. Again, he has Avatar still available here. We'll see if they commit too many resources. There he goes in. Avatar is going to be popped. He's moving onto the backline. Cawthon does get the variable. Fury under Force, or a Wave of Force saved him, but now he ends up losing his life, and that's another death here. As Justin is not done. Dwarf tossing over, and shots now going to be over to TNC in the first keep of the game.
Fury has been having trouble dealing with all of the damage.
So is Zeratul.
Yeah.
He's kind of gone 100 to 0 in about negative seconds, it feels like at this point. He just goes in for the Void and it's like, what if we just killed the little green guy? Yeah, just dead.
It's a good strategy.
Killing your opponents usually is, but again, I feel like a lot of that comes down to the Voids we see on the side of Cattle. They haven't been huge. They've been isolating a target that's sitting next to the Void, so they have the opportunity. Do I just decide to go and get the skirmers onto you, or do I walk into the Void? Because there's very few follow-up to said Void.
Goku has been the follow-up, and that's not what you want.
Yeah,
that's not the right follow-up for Murlocs at this point. I was wondering if Greymane picked Wizen Duelist. As people have been moving away from it, no, he did not. He went for Quicksilver. I had seen TNC still in the qualifiers using it when a lot of other teams had moved away from Wizen.
Yeah.
And that would, of course, add to the damage, but it's very risky, especially with Zeratul there. And Murloc's isolation potential with Gust.
This is a fight TNC doesn't want. They should just be giving up the shots. Again, they're winning the race to 20. Worry about the soak on the other side of the map. You have a keep and a half over your opponents. They haven't even confirmed the forts. So I'd really like to see, TNC is going to be a bit more patient here. And again, this is all you do on this map. You just worry about now, get 20. The next time the map objective is going to be spawning, you won't win the game yet, but you'll be threatening a triple keep. With the new catapult adjustments, that almost is game. And if it's not game, you made a very big misplay if you end up losing it in the back later half of the game. Because you can just predict rotations. You can draw so many resources. Falstead has to sit back and clear all day. And you can play around that very, very efficiently. So we'll see if they end up playing that patiently. This invasion, this is a fight Murlocs wants, and they know it.
Yeah, they're going straight after Goku in the backline. There is a Void Prison, and that Void Prison is everything for them. A big Wailing Arrow to follow up, though. Gets all 5. Ancestral Healing this time will connect on Fury. They're condemning back in. They want more. Murloc Geniuses need to get killed at this point, but how takes out Som?
I'm going to be honest, that was about as pretty as it could have got when it came to team fights. Fury now is going to be stun locked down. June is getting threatened here on the upper half by Buzz. Not going to be able to confirm the kill. Cawthon with that Lightning Rod will be able to make him back out here, and they're going to be moving towards the mid-keep. But again, that was about the prettiest fight we're going to see Murlocs get. That was about exactly what they wanted. Cattle overextending. He's going to be going down. Not going to be able to get the wormhole either. Cawthon now risking quite a bit. If he dies, this could be game. Quicksilver's got it. He's dead. They're going to move into the core either way. I don't think they have the tools to stop him. Gus isn't up for 21 seconds. This is GG.
3 people gone. 3 people gone. No Li Ming. It's just down to Falstad to poke and Rhaegar. And look how fast this core is falling. TNC have done it. They're going to take down Murloc Geniuses in game number 2 and force us to go to game number 3 in our first match of the day.
You asked me when game number 1 started, what did it mean that we saw Murloc Geniuses pulling out the Cho'Gall Ariel already, the diversity that we see, and there are a couple of answers, but already with how weak I feel like that draft was in favor of the comfort and what we know Murloc Geniuses to kind of be good at and what they get away with that Zeratul and Caterpillar, I think it was more of maybe they don't have nearly as many resources in their arsenal as we saw during Burbank. They came in, their interviews say that they're feeling very confident, that they want to prove that it wasn't a fluke like everybody else kind of feels it like it was, but that's TNC, and you're already showing signs of struggle.
I don't know, though. I don't want to take anything from TNC because I think this is an amazing version of TNC, probably the best we've ever seen on LAN. There was no panic there. There really wasn't even that much in the first game either. They still were timing things out. They just were kept trying to do the same thing over and over again.
I agree, but again, they still took risks that they didn't have to.
Sure,
but that's going to be it for us for now. We're going to go to a quick break before we get to game number 3, so stay tuned.
To all agents of Overwatch, look around. War. Criminals. Someone has to do something. We can make a difference again. The world needs us more than ever. We are justice.
We are courage. We are hope.
We are Overwatch. Are you with me?
Overwatch. Play it now on PC and console. Rated T for teen.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the NA Regional for Fall here as we had TNC tie up the series 1-1. And in that last game, it really felt like the story of good and bad melee assassin execution there, with Goku playing fantastically on the Thrall, and Caterpillar, unfortunately, on the other side, not really hitting the mark with the Zeratul.
The Zeratul's Void Prisons were not synchronized at all with the Falstad play during that game. It looked like they did not have very much practice coordinating those two teamfight swinging heroics, and it really cost them.
Well, on the other side of the coin, you say Goku, and the first word that comes to mind is Thrall. So much so that they first picked him, and you can see they actually got quite a bit of value on it. We talked about how heavily they went on Thrall, and they overcommitted it, put him in a lot of vulnerable spots. And what TNC was able to do to capitalize on that, it really showed that they've got their game together in game number 2.
You could see, I mean, even the adaptation, admittedly, from Murloc Geniuses trying to deal with the Thrall, as you say. You know, in the earlier stages, he was causing havoc for them. But then towards the later parts, trying to focus him down and killing him off, they were successful. but then it was still a 4 versus 5 win for TNC.
Remember they came out of that fight, they were so clumped up that you actually hit the dream 5-person wailing arrow. Their entire team was silenced.
There was no threat for Greymane. Basically, the team fight started, and they were all focus through all, focus fall, focus through all. And then it just, they killed him, but every single cooldown is down. And then Greymane goes in, gets the D-shield, and anytime you can D-shield late in the fight for proactive purposes, you're going to get so much value.
All right, well, I mean, looking at that, how TNC is able to tie that up, in a certainly odd situation, I think, for Murloc Geniuses. I mean, none of us were really expecting the Zeratul pick to come out from them. So does now Murloc Geniuses go back to a more standard draft and say, okay, we're still North American champions. We should be taking this first series against TNC, who come in as usually a kind of 7th through 8th place, 5th through 6th place finisher.
I think they definitely need to go back to their roots, play a little bit more standard, but at the same time, I talked about it before. We talked about TNC didn't have roster changes. They're staying together. They're starting to gain experience, and eventually you stay together. Like I said, is it the time that they evolve? And the fact that they look so comfortable on stage after game number 1, game number 2, they look completely composed, I don't think it's out of the question that we will see them finally start to rise up a little bit in the North American scene. I don't think that's out of the question at all.
Is that something you would echo here, Dunk? Because overall, as you know, J-Howe says, with them sticking together for as long as they have, and then if you give someone like Goku the tools that are so powerful on him, do they have other picks like that that they could actually like throw out and exert some pressure with?
That's actually, I think, one of the big weaknesses of TNC is their hero pools are not as diverse as a lot of the other top teams. And that's something that can cost you tournaments. Tiger JK has been known to have an amazing Uther. He played very well that game. We've seen him struggle on other supports. Goku has been known to struggle on other melee assassins. Yeah, his Thrall was impeccable, but if you just don't give him Thrall, then he's not going to be as impactful, at least from what we've seen in the past.
You know, to further your point, when we looked at the statistics basically from the last regional and qualifiers, Tiger JK, I mean, think about the transformation he's been through. He's switched teams, he's kind of been on odd roles and stuff like that. But statistically, on support play, when I looked at it, I was actually surprised how much his name jumped out. Like, his support plays, statistically, the amount of heals he's able to get out, his KDA, everything, I was like, wow, like, maybe I'm underestimating Tiger JK. So I'm actually curious if that's going to be something that they can carry them forward to be able to have him in the role playing as well as he is.
Well, the next map is going to be Dragonshire between these two teams, picked by TNC. And actually, this is another good map for Thrall if they want to go down that kind of path, right?
Thrall map, Zagara map. It's basically a top lane island. How do you deal with this? You know it's so hard to rotate to that top lane, and you either have to build a composition that wins the top lane or crushes the bottom side of the map with that 4-man rotation. So I would expect to see heroes like Zul, heroes like Zagara, Falstad, of course, amazing with the global. Could even see some Brightwing here.
Yeah, Zul is one of the heroes that every time I go to Europe, he just doesn't exist.
I knew you were going to say that.
I had to.
It.
But when you come to the NA scene, and this is what Dunk's talking about, the rotations that you get, the amount of value you get out of that hero on certain maps, this one in particular, I think it's something that we'll definitely see, whereas just 2 weeks ago, not so much.
In my mind, I had €5 on that. I suppose I should say $5 on that, but never mind. All right, so maybe we shall see that. Of course, you know, the lane dominance is very important. Something like Vikings doesn't really exist on this map in NA, sadly. It does in EU from time to time. So we'll see going into this draft in just a moment. But looking at the series as a whole now, TNC has certainly already caused a little bit of an upset, taking one map here against Murloc Geniuses, one would say. Or do you think that they have come in a little bit more fiery than the previous NA regional?
I can't get over, like, how calm TNC looks. I remember my first event was their first event at DreamHack Austin back in May.
Yeah, true.
And I remember watching them collectively. They were shaken, and they admitted it. Second regional came along, they were still a little bit shaky, but this is a newer roster. They've made a few changes. They came into the first regional, they looked different, but they looked better. And now they look like they're evolving. And if they take this, all of a sudden I'm like, wow. Like, this is a completely different team.
I mean, even alone the fact that they have qualified for regional after regional after regional, admittedly, and for this one, but still, they keep qualifying. They are, without a shadow of a doubt, top 8 team in America for sure.
You can't take that away from them, right? Yeah. I mean, they have shown consistently they can make it to these regionals. I mean, at the last regional, we saw Vox break top 4 and then not even make it to this event. True. So definitely have to give respect where it's due to TNC consistently showing up, showing that they can make it, and taking a game off Murlocs, I think it's really going to shake them.
All right, well, we can actually check in with some of the highlights from our previous game as well here, whilst we're just waiting for our third draft to get ready and rolling here from Sky Temple, of course. As where are we joining in? We're joining in just before level 10, and this was actually a very important fight, guys.
This was really catastrophic for Murlocs, actually. Anytime you take a bite right before level 10 on this bottom temple, it can swing either way. And we see this first kill when Team Name Change gets it. Here we go, boom, kill, level 10. Heroics are going to start coming out, and this is where Murlocs falls so far behind.
Yeah, I mean, you saw right there the capitalization as we saw Greymane go in there at the end.
Yeah.
But the follow-up, Greymane at the bottom, the rotation in with the Sunder, and they were able to get that. Here's some of the isolation we talked about with the Void Prisons done.
Goku does get focused down here, but it's just not enough. I mean, we see this beautiful team fight from Murlocs to start, but as soon as MVP is about to drop, 5-man wailing, and that is devastating. They could not recover, even though the Ancestral hits. This is where Greymane's about to go off. There he goes, gets the heal from Uther, D-shield, and now he just kills his targets.
He wasn't even done there. I mean, he actually continued to rotate down. I mean, that's how much value they got out of that. You talked about when you can get the D-shield late in the fight. That was pretty late in the fight, and that was huge right there. And that was basically game ending because they followed that up with a Zeratul kill, rush core, and then into game.
We were mentioning just before that game as a whole, the changes to Greymane, how he's interpreted in the current meta. There is the potential to see different builds for him. But in this game, we saw him have free reign. We saw him going to a very familiar build to us in terms of just going for blow-up potential, and it was successful. What really contributed to that as a whole here in that second game?
I feel that most of the success with Greymane was because that Thrall drew so much threat. I mean, we talked about this right when we came back, but the Thrall took so many resources to kill every time because they just didn't have the lockdown to prevent him from getting that healing that they have to devote extra cooldown. So much effort to actually kill that target, and then the Greymane just got basically free run of the team fights afterwards.
Do you think we'll see him fit into that as a whole a little bit more throughout the tournament? Do you think we'll see him still going to the similar build, but then just being basically the secondary huge threat along with somebody that is already there, like even something ridiculous like an Illidan, for example?
I think one of the things that we saw, Dunk, when we looked at stuff, especially in qualifiers and the recent changes that you talked about, we've seen a lot more focus on the cocktail build. You know, you see at level 7, it's a questing talent. People tend to try and get more value out of it. I talked about the fact that they've changed it so it's more poke-oriented, and then he's able to get into that Worgen form when it's time to capitalize. So I love the balance that they've made out of him, and I think that he still really fits. It's a different play style and mentality. You can't just go in as Greymane and know that you're going to get the kill. You now have to work for it, and I think he's still very much viable.
All right. Okay. Well, of course, make sure to join in the conversation still on Twitter as well with the hashtag HGC to make sure that you can tell us as well who you think is going to win. In the previous game, we had 75% in favor of Murloc Geniuses being victorious. However, so far, not to be. They have not taken the clean sweep 2-0 here, and TNC has pushed it on to a game at number 3. So beyond what we've spoken about in terms of the laning potential on Dragonshire, we can actually jump into the draft as well now, powered by Oros. So we shall see exactly what we're going to find out. And Azul banned to start things off. Congratulations, J-How.
I mean, he shows up in a draft for once. I love it. Now, I wonder if we're going to see... This has to be a Zagara ban. I feel like this has to be a Zagara ban by TNC to deny it from Koth. And I'd be surprised if we see anything else, but they're taking their time.
I really like that Murloc Geniuses actually chose to first ban this Zul because it puts the squeeze on Team Name Change. I mean, you don't want to leave that Falstad up. You don't want to leave Zagara up. So even if TNC opts to leave both Zagara and Falstad up, that means they're giving Kothin Zagara. You don't want to do that. Even to get Falstad, you don't want to do that.
I mean, you can already see a lot of conferring going on between Team Name Change here and taking their time about this first ban because, as you have rightly pointed out, it is very, very important. And Falstad is going to be the pick. Admittedly, extremely powerful on this map. 4 rotations between those shrines.
That's actually really interesting that Team Name Change decided to give up the Zagara rather than the Falstad. I mean, we've just seen Kothin be an absolute monster on this map, especially with Nidus Zagara. So I wonder if Team Name Change has a plan to deal with this, dominant hero.
I'm so surprised they let it through. I'm so surprised. But they're going back into what they know. That's Thrall, that's Goku, and you have Buds on Li Ming. That's what they love to play. Those are their top heroes that they love to play. So Works well for the map, works well for their compositions. Comfort picks.
So beyond the idea of the second bans, we're probably going to see two compositions here that are revolving almost entirely around comfort picks. I mean, right now, as you say, on the side of Team Name Change, it's there. Already on the side of Murloc Geniuses, it is there. And they still have a lot of room to spread their wings without Falstad. No pun intended, sorry.
Murloc Geniuses pretty much needs to decide what they want for their 4-man.
Yeah.
You have the Zagara, you want to make that top lane feel like you can't afford to go there. So Team Name Change gonna have the Thrall in that matchup. He'll be okay, he'll survive, but if they're losing the bottom side of the map as well as having a tough matchup with that Thrall into Zagara on the top side, Team Name Change is gonna feel a lot of pressure around these Dragon Knights.
I'm curious about the ETC pickup. I think this is Fury's least successful hero, and I wonder why they're not going into something like a Muradin. Maybe they're just afraid. I mean, obviously we know Li Ming is a hard counter to the Mosh Pit. It's just something that we see 100% if you can get it. But picking it up early, they're going to try and get Greymane themselves now.
I was wondering if they were going to ban Muradin actually on the second rotation, because we saw in the previous game for Team Name Change, it actually have significant success with Thrall in the front line and then to help out Greymane as well. So maybe that will be their second ban.
I could see that working out. What's actually interesting is taking the ETC and the Greymane. Those are both heroes that would really love to have a Divine Shield.
Yeah.
And I have to think that Murloc Geniuses was maybe hoping to bait the Uther ban and then go with a different support, because when you pick Uther, go ahead, Jao.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just going to say, the Medivh thing, this is actually something that Murloc has been running.
Yeah.
They've been running, and we've been seeing a lot of Medivh with the Greymane and an Oriole, something like that, and maybe that's what they were trying to see if they could pull off on the back half. This is something that Murloc is known to run, and it seems like TNC has that. I'm sorry, but I just got excited there. I was like, they've done their homework.
So Murlocs did end up banning out that Muradin, like you said. It really does constrict the frontline options for Team Name Change. They have to go with maybe a Zagara now. I'm not a Zagara.
Yeah.
Johanna to control that 4-lane rotate. But I wonder if Murloc Geniuses is actually going to opt for the stage dive, because if they bait Team Name Change into picking Johanna and then they commit the wave of force, suddenly Team Name Change has spent a lot of resources preemptively countering the Mosh. And if you go for stage dive, that can actually get insane value on this map.
Uther Lunara comes out as the picks very rapidly on their side, but they're not constricting the healing too much from Murloc Geniuses, so they should have some tools to help out against Lunara.
No surprise that Rhaegar's getting picked up here. I mean, you have to expect the Rhaegar to come out when you see the Lunara on the enemy team, but Murloc Genius is opting for the Zeratul again. That is very surprising to me. By picking that hero, it really gives up a lot of the control they could potentially have had on the bottom side of the map. It's not great in the 4-man, doesn't contribute very much wave clear, and it doesn't have the greatest kill pressure with ETC.
I have to ask though, on that side, if they do get like say 2 members in that Void Prism, is there squishier targets for them to attack on this map, considering there's a Li Ming and a Lunara compared to the previous game?
My problem is that you don't always have enough room to work. Like,
True.
It's very difficult to have the room to work. It's a much smaller map than Sky Temple. You also look at the fact that Lunara, at level 1, her Toxin, she has a talent that says, hey, if you're tagged with a Toxin, you remain visible. And for somebody like Zeratul, that's really hard to avoid. At level 13, you can get Spell Shield on Lunara, but as you talked about, the potential Johanna pickup is what they're going to go with here.
It feels like with that Johanna pickup, Team Name Change just secures an absolute dominance in the bottom side of the map with that 4-man rotate. So Murloc Geniuses now has to play around Zeratul ganking the top side rather than just playing standard on the bottom side of the map. And I don't think their composition is strong enough for that. I would have liked to see maybe a Brightwing for Murloc Geniuses to synergize with the Zeratul roam and get another global. But as it is, I think if Team Name Change just plays safe, standard on the bot side, make sure Thrall stays alive, they're going to have a very good shot in this game.
It's interesting that you mentioned that actually, because now when I look at that top lane of Thrall versus Zagara, Thrall's normally kind of pushed back anyway against Zagara, so isn't really in, or shouldn't be in too much of a vulnerable spot against the potential of a Zeratul. So surely it's going to be up to Goku to make the heavier mistakes in that top lane compared to Zeratul making the right plays.
But Shrine Control can force you to do things you wouldn't traditionally do. It'll force you to rotate up, and I think to try and contest that. You make a perfect point. I mean, that's the thing. It's his job to mess up. I mean, and it's really hard to do that. You know, I mean, but at the same time, you are on Thrall, you have a little bit of survivability, but to further Dunk's point, to be able to have that rotation, to be able to have that mobility for the games, I feel that's taken off the table for the reasons you just said. So he can make the mistakes. It's just a matter of will he, and are they going to get the value out of that Zeratul? I'm actually really surprised we're seeing Zeratul 2 games in a row.
When you're running that Zeratul on this map, you want to force the errors out of your opponents. So this concept of, oh, we're putting pressure on you on both sides of the map, and then someone's going to make a mistake, Zeratul can capitalize. But right now, Murlocs will be putting 0 pressure on the bottom side of the map, which means Goku doesn't have any mental pressure. Oh, I can give up the shrine. It doesn't matter. They're not going to get bottom shrine. Oh, I don't ever have to go out and soak in a scary place, because if Zeratul's not on the map, there's just no risk. Absolutely no risk about him losing the rest of the map, so I don't think we will see those forced errors.
All right, well, we'll find out in just a moment here as we get into game number 3 between Murloc Geniuses and Team Name Change. Boys, who are we looking out for to make the plays here, and who's even going to take the victory?
For me, it's going to be the Lunara play. I feel that Lunara is one of the heroes that when she's picked late game, she brings a ton of value.
Yeah.
And then against this comp in particular, can really put a lot of pressure on what Murloc Genius is trying to accomplish, especially with Zeratul.
This has to be the Cawthon Lux Zagara story again. I mean, I see this draft, and I feel like Murloc Geniuses messed pretty much everything up other than the Zagara pick, and it's all on Cawthon's back here.
All right, let's get going then. Game number 3 as we go over to the Xfinity caster desk with Dread and Gillyweed.
Dread, here we go with game number 3. The winner of this match gets to go to the coveted winners match in the group. And man, TNC's draft looks pretty scary.
Yeah, she's looking pretty. Again, I think Dunk put it best with the story of Cawthon on Zagara, because it's just so dominant there in the upper half of the map. And again, his win rate on the hero is insane comparative to some of his others, and it's such a good map. So I love that about that. But we'll see how it ends up playing out here, as TNC has really done a lot better than a lot of people expected them to.
Again, they have a lot of their comfort picks too, which worked out so beautifully for them in the last game. Thrall, again, they have Li Ming, even though it's not Buds the Legend, as I like to call him, playing Li Ming, but they do have Lunara, who has been another favorite of them lately. So they are going to be great. I love the 4-man too that they have. That potential of that it's very impressive to see the drafting from TNC, and I think Murlocs may be in a little more of a panic than they expected to be in this match.
I agree, and again, we do end up seeing actually Cawthon is going to be the one onto the Zeratul there. But the Flask build is now going to be played on... Oh, we have a bit of a pause here. The Flask build on the Greymane is something that's seen a bit more popularity since we've seen some of the nerfs onto him. And last game we made a comment, me specifically, about Goku on Thrall and comparing his melees and how good he is on the Thrall. But I think the biggest weakness of his Thrall is on this map. He is very good in the matchup when you let him be alone. But anytime there's a very good gank, Kerrigan or a Zeratul, he is very risky in some of his positioning and gets caught out quite frequently. And if his team isn't swift in being able to make sure they abuse on the bottom half of the map when that happens, it usually hurts his team. And when you build a comp around him, I mean, Thrall was one of the early rotation picks. I mean, he's great on the hero, but they need to make sure that he is safe whenever they have no idea when the Zeratul is, and abuse the fact they have a very good 4-man.
Yeah, TNC in the past has had times where they get overly aggressive.
Yes.
And if Zagara is able to bait Thrall to come out too far, Zeratul could be a huge problem for him. So they need to always constantly keep in mind that as long as they can't look at the minimap and see Zeratul in a lane somewhere, that he could be right next to me, about to hit me with a cleave, a singularity spike to slow me down, and then cause murder.
Yeah, and when we look at Murloc Genius's composition, they also have something that existed for a short period of time in the Korean region, which is going to be Ma, Void, and Mosh all in the same comp. It's essentially like the triple circle of death kind of style of play, where you're just going to be like, you work on getting CC on 2 to 3 people, and as long as you make that happen, nobody else can really stop it, right? You have Void, you have Ma, you focus those people down, and just with how much absurd control you have in the chokeholds, you usually are going to be thriving. This map has quite a few you can draw team fights into, so I want to see if Murlocs is going to be on the same page, because, again, last game we talked about the Zeratul wasn't too impressive.
But they switched who's going to be playing him, and that's part of it.
But they also take their best Zagara player and take him off Zagara.
They do, but I don't think they're going to be running Nidus as they had been running in the last tournament.
Yeah.
Because when Cawthon has talked about when they play Zagara with Nidus, it's when they have a very, very strong 4-man composition. I don't know if they feel like they have that strong 4-man, especially as compared to the one that TNC has. So I think as long as we can maybe see, is it Cattle who's playing?
It's going to be the Cattle's going to be on the Zeratul then? All right, so apparently we got a little bit of misinformation. Cattle is still on the Zeratul. and Cawthon is going to be playing on the Zagara in the upper half of the map.
So it'll be very curious to see which heroic ability he ends up going with if they want that full control.
Yeah, it was just a small count error there for a second, so we have a beautiful double Cawthon. Gotta love that. But for now, we'll see if Cattle's going to be effective again. I do love that we see Infest with something in Europe that almost is non-existent, really. Volatile Acid is pretty much the only talent they look for at the level 1. And again, we talked about this. Goku has to be very smart about the positioning. Cattle's going to be all over him this game.
It's interesting still to see Infest. It was nerfed. It's been nerfed before. It's going to be nerfed again. But it still will help him constantly be able to siege and continue that up into the late game. But the Greymane build is the one that has been really interesting to me. Given that Wolfheart was nerfed, I was still seeing it sometimes when I would see Greymane played, but this is even going to be perfect aim. So trying to make sure that you have some mana regeneration from that and to get some range so that he will be more of a poke-style hero.
Yeah, the full flask will be able to provide a reasonable amount of harass, semi-help when it comes to the rotations, and he can get so much poke on the front walls. Europe, Snitch specifically, was a player who was so good at that when they ran that perfect aim-esque build way back in the day, but we'll see if they're going to make it effective again. Goku is playing so patient in the upper half because they can't keep track of the Zeratul, and Zag is just dominating that lane. Medusa's Blade's already picked up. She's got the Infest. She is slowly but surely becoming a monster.
With Medusa Blades and Infest, starting to think maybe it is going to be Nidus for Cawthon. Well, we'll see.
I think they can still go Ma. I don't think it's necessary even with that. It's trends that they show specifically, but I don't think it's a must-have.
No, definitely. I agree, but it makes me think that for sure. Especially, I guess we'll see as he gets closer to 10 if we see him starting to move between lanes to spread out the creep so he can drop those Nidus Worms as soon as they get heroic abilities. But taking down the towers, they have slightly gotten ahead in experience, but barely nothing. TNC has done a good job of keeping up, and a lot of that comes down to not losing any kills, not letting Murloc snowball by getting any picks.
Yeah, and we see as well Regen Master, Eyes in the Dark, dominance this time instead of the Triumvirate. I do love that pickup there from Houndoin, but again, there's such control on the side of TNC for now in their 4-man. They aren't doing too well in the upper half. June taking a bit of harass, but they're doing a good job as this game moves on the bottom. Once they hit 7, if they move into the Nature's Calling, their structure damage on the front walls is going to become insane. The wave clear as well. That 4-man suddenly feels like a 5-man essentially in those rotations because that wave clear and siege potential is just ridiculous for her.
Especially with Li Ming,
yes,
too. Once she gets Calamity, that helps with wave clear, and also her ability to siege is fantastic, too. An uncontested Dragon Knight has been picked up by Murloc Geniuses, the first Dragon Knight of the game, and now it is Murloc's turn to siege down some structures.
Ends up going with Splintered Spear at level 7. Going to get a bit of a AoE harass there, but yeah, Zeratul make a sneaky rotation. It's going to confirm a DK. It's only 4 minutes into the game. A front wall or 2 is about at best what it's going to draw, but with how well they've done in the upper half of the map, there's very few resources really committed to the upper half, and bottom hasn't been so successful. Right now, Murloc Geniuses has done a good job with their composition because once it gets to the back half of the game, they thrive in chaos, which Dragon Shire is a map that does a lot of it. It produces a lot of chaos left and right. So we'll see if that, again, Cattle on that Zeratul is going to be able to catch people off like the Lunara just walking alone by herself in the forest.
They rotated down to start getting some of the towers. It's going to help them out since they were losing their towers to the Great Siege of TNC in the bottom lane. And you want to make sure you're taking down towers when you can on Dragonshire, especially because as the minion waves start to push out your lane, the harder it becomes to get in and grab a shrine in a dire situation. And they've already got that on top. They've completely controlled that. We have talked about that. Zagara and Zeratul have done such a perfect job with that, but now they're trying to help themselves out in that 4-man rotation in bot 2.
And we see the teams backing out, getting as much as they can. Giants on the bottom, Knights going for them. You see Zeratul is just rotating around, and again, I criticized Goku on the early half of this game. We saw Cattle make 3 to 4 rotations up there. He hasn't died once, so he's done a very good job. Granted, he's lost his lane, but you're against the Zagara, that's going to happen.
What do you expect?
Tiger getting caught out here, taking a bit of harass. The slow coming in. June as well with another slow totem on top of it. I don't think he's going to be able to get out of here, and that will be
Fury.
a first blood drawn here 5.5 minutes in.
What a bully Fury was in those with the body blocks, as well as the Earthbind Totem to help slow him down too. Heroic abilities now coming online. Nidus Network will be the choice for Zagara, so now Cawthon can become a beast in multiple lanes. Everything else, the norm that you would see. Void Prison and Mosh, they still have those zoning potentials, and then go for the throat and Ancestral Healing.
I really think I would have liked to see a Nature's Calling just to make sure that they're so much more dominant in the bottom half, right? I mean, they've been neglecting the upper lane for some time, but I think the next step is, okay, well, if we know top lane slowly but surely going to be struggling, how can we win the bottom half? I'm guessing the argument is just getting as much AoE DPS out as possible, but again, Zag's going to be rotating and split pushing this whole game. Having that extra wave clear to be able to stop her very quickly, I think is something that they're going to regret as this game moves on. But now we do have the second shrine rotation spawning bottom will be captured here for TNC as they are all on the bottom half of the map. Zag getting clear in the upper lane, but for now, they looks like they're going to move for a front wall.
My thought maybe with Splintered Spear is if they're very focused on their team fights, which they were in the last game, they have Sunders again to start the initiation, then if they can use that to burn down multiple heroes, maybe it'll help make Hal's job a little bit easier for trying to get those resets really fast and get complete team wipes.
Yeah, it could be an option here as Thrall finds the ETC. He's going to be able to get the power slide out. Nidus Network, or excuse me, Zag on the upper half of the map with the Infest is just pushing. We see TNC trying to push on bottom as a response. Again, without Nature's Calling, it's not going to have the greatest siege. They go with the Blessed Shield. A lot of damage. Cleanse coming out on the side of June for Caterpillar. And I expect a Void counter engage here.
Goku was trying to come in from the side and do a Sunder flank, but Fury sniffed that out with quickness and pushed him away. And they have been able to stave off this aggressive push, but meanwhile, Zagara in top, she is taken out of fort. So great plays by Murloc Geniuses here.
Yeah, and she's going to be able to make a lot of rotations to the bottom half as well. That's going to secure them what's going to be a DK here. Nobody's going to be able to stop her. Actually, Thrall will be able to sniff it out in mid as we see them posturing for bottom. Nah, DK does go over to Cawthon, excuse me. He ends up making that rotation from the upper half there, and now they get themselves a second DK and what's going to be a 13-tier advantage soon.
Murloc Geniuses look much more comfortable with this draft specifically. Void Prison is in the back, and Tiger JK has been caught, barely makes it in the Void Prison, but he's going to de-shield himself. There he will use it. They have Sundering from the back too, but didn't do too much. And now Goku is way far away from his base, and Cawthon will move in. He can always boon if they needed to, but nope. Fire Breath, and that'll be a Thrall death.
Yeah, that was a situation that's really rough for Tiger. The only way he comes out and feels effective in the fight is if Thrall somehow just pretty much goes extremely aggressive. He Divine Shields him, dies, and then uses his passive in order to be complementary to that team fight. But it was already so ugly, there was no way around it. Bud's now getting obliterated as well. Mid-fort now going to be falling for Murloc Geniuses as what seemed like maybe a questionable composition after watching the Zeratul in the last game. They seem to have a firm grasp over this one.
Much more confidence, but I think a lot of it comes down to, again, they got Zagara.
Yep.
And it was questioned by the panel whether it should have been allowed through versus the Falstad that ended up being banned by TNC. But TNC are not out of it yet. They're only a little bit behind before they'll have 13 and they can try to find a fight on even footing again. But Murlocs are going to try to continue to maximize that Nidus value that they have with taking some mercenary camps and letting her push all over the place.
Yeah, and we see her just kind of dancing around the map. They're worried about getting as many objectives as possible. They don't have 13-tier advantage. TNC is going to want to look to try and force that fight when they do end up finally getting 13. Murlocs, again, the Zagara is just all over the place, man. She's doing so much with that Infest Medusas. It's so hard to deal with. I mean, again, they have just complete control over the game as we see a minor freeze here for a moment. Sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. Sad days when it comes to that. We'll get right back into it in a moment.
So they have Zagara. They picked up Nidus, even though they had a whole bunch of heroic abilities that they maybe were wanting to combo with Ma, but still being able to get a lot of push with Nidus.
I mean, the global alone, the threat that you provide to the shrines, I don't think it's unreasonable to move into it.
Definitely. And I love that with Zeratul, they almost have like a protection to allow her to be more aggressive with that push. As long as nobody sees him, you can't wonder, or you have to wonder, if he's right there too, so any Zagara ganks may not come in as much. That's
actually a really cool point that you bring up, is that actually Zeratul is less effective clearing the bottom half of the map than he is back at his own base. It's something Korea was the first region I really noticed abused it very heavily like a year and a half ago, where they wouldn't even rotate. They would just not show you where they were. And it wasn't the fact that you didn't know if, like, for instance, like Lockdown would be in that shrub. It was just that you knew he wasn't top. And you're like, I don't know where he is. It's not like if he clears the wave, suddenly you're like, we know he's there, it's going to be fine. But when the minute Zeratul disappears, you're like, you all have to play like Zeratul is near you. And that allowed Cawthon to just kind of abuse everything. Granted, there were a lot of times Zeratul was top, but it still was, again, the fear of Zeratul sometimes more effective than Zeratul himself.
Absolutely. Zagara also picked up protective coating too, so she can hope to feel confident in those split pushes, because she does take less damage whenever she's on creep, and Cawthon has great creep spread. He has been always having that, even with the last regional too. And looking at what they have to clear out creep, Johanna's going to be very useful for them too. But with the rest of them, you're looking at Thrall using abilities, Lunara has to use abilities too. Not exactly what you want to be doing.
Yeah, and again, I think we see in a lot of situations where Zag is only going to apply more and more split pressure, while the Dragon Knight, which they're most likely going to get because they've done so well on the 4-man.
Yes.
Zag's been doing so well on her own that I really don't see this game changing tempo too much in one direction, and I feel like it's going to get to the point where suddenly somebody wants to try and force a fight or deal with the Zagara, and Lunara, without that Nature's Calling, has to sit there forever to be able to deal with it. Again, if this was an Uther on the other side, I think I don't mind the Splintered Spear.
Yes, but it's Rhaegar.
Yeah, but it's a Rhaegar. He doesn't necessarily, I mean, any support struggles when you have more damage, but it's not, I don't look at that and go, well, you know what, Rhaegar has no way of dealing with that, whereas like Uther goes, well, I have to choose one of the 3, 4, right? So I really feel like that is going to be something that bites them in the butt as this goes on. And the most important thing for TNC is they need to figure out how to get a fight. Right now, they're yet to try and choose one. They've just been losing everywhere on the map, and that's kind of the story of Dragonshire. It's one of the only maps you don't truly need to be a legend when it comes to the team fight. The only time you do is if it gets 20-20, and who's to say that's on even footing?
Exactly. They had one spot where it looked like Goku maybe was about to drop the money Sunder that we saw from last game too and throw people back around the bottom 4. That would have helped them secure kills. It would have helped them get a 4-2. But Fury knew that was a potential. Especially after how much they dealt with it in the last game. Again, we're going to see TNC try to siege down this bottom fort. We'll see if they'll be able to get it this time.
Zeratul and Zagara are worried about the night camp, so they do have a small window where they're going to be able to do it. You see Howdenwind trying to throw out as many spells as possible to make it happen.
And there we go, almost down. They've got the Giants as well, and it will be brought down. And with that, Merlin Geniuses, Coffin is the one moving around too. They've got lots of potentials for flanks.
That's not good.
Cleanse was used to stop Coffin from dying to the Sundering, and the Ancestral Healing brings him back up, but TNC moved back very quickly. They know that was it.
Yeah, if they use Blessed Shield and Sundering and aren't able to get a kill, there's almost no situation where they win a team fight. They need to be making sure they gain value of that in some way, shape, or form, which is part of the reason Johanna, just as a whole, is kind of a weaker tank, is because her initiation is not nearly as effective as ETC or going to be the Muradin there. Thrall does help compensate for that, but again, stacking them together and not getting anything, there's no hope against the composition that we see on the side of Murloc. Even if you get a pretty situation, you're just going to be voided. They walk away, and you hope your next rotation is more effective. But now Murlocs, this is pretty much going to be 16 free DK with the global and the pressure they have, which now they're going to start worrying about knocking down the keeps. And this is, again, where I think the Nature's Calling might start wishing you had that instead.
Well, there's no Sundering for Goku to try to catch somebody in 16.
They have to force before 16.
Almost here. They're trying to go in. Here comes Justin. He has Blessed Shield in just a couple of seconds. He wants to use that. They've caught Fury, but a Void Prison in the back allows Fury to move through Justin. They throw the damage.
That Splintered Spear was a lot of DPS there, just enough to be able to give them the upper hand for a short period of time. Team will be looking to tap, get 16, and again, that fight TNC wanted to, the initiation they were so desperately trying to get is not going to matter now that their opponent's Ignitus on the upper half, and 16 is going to be achieved.
16 is here. Murloc's grabbing those talents, and Zeratul cautiously checking to see when he can pick up that bottom shrine. That's going to force TNC to sit in the middle a lot because they don't want to give up another Dragon Knight. And if they're all here, you know what they're not doing is soaking multiple lanes, trying to catch up to 16 too.
Yeah, they're in a rough position for the time being as they are trying to control Murlocs as they have 16 tier advantage. Zeratul confirming on the bottom half, you can expect the rotation to come up through mid, and that's where they're going to be wanting to force this fight. TNC not going top right now is a terrible decision, I think. They're just going to get voided and killed.
Void is...
What are these?
They did use it a bit ago, so there's some time where they're trying to get a kill maybe. Ancestral Healing keeps Tom alive. He can jump back in here now, and he's going to be doing lots of damage because he's got Executioner. His stacks are fully picked up, leaving the first to fall, but not the last. Johanna will drop as well.
They, even without, I'm sorry, I'm so confused. Even without the Void, they just accepted a fight into 16. Just blatantly was like, you know what? We're just going to take it. Well, that's what I guess they were hoping for. The only reason that's so confusing, if that was 13, I kind of get it. 13 is a power spike. Obviously, any talent tier is, but it's not colossal. 16 is legitimately top 3's power spikes in the entire game, and they just volunteered to, like, we're just going to take this. They didn't worry about trying to buy time. They didn't even send one rotation to top. It was just, we're going to take it. I feel like that already shows the mentality that we see coming out from TNC here.
I solely think it was because Void's offline, and we can't let them have a dragon. We just can't. They've done so much to our structures already because of Zagara. But this dragon's not doing too much. It's getting towers down. It's opening up to the bottom keep, which is great. Bottom lane is perfect to be able to try to get a win condition. Oh, how barely teleports away in time. Gonna have to get healed back up by Uther before he tries to poke again.
Yeah, I think the most realistic thought process there is, again, it's based around the Void.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what, we don't care about 16. Void is more detrimental. The fact that it's down is going to be the best fight we're going to be able to get. And when there's still TNC yet to be able to pick 16 up, going for the stun onto Tiger JK. Void in the back. He does Divine Shield himself, not going to be able to try and mount up or anything of the like to get out of there. Psalm is getting a lot of DPS in the response, and 16's pick up. TNC might be able to make something happen now.
Ancestral wasn't quite ready for that, but it's almost there. But Void has been used, and usually when you have a Zeratul on your team, you don't want to fight unless you know that you have that.
Yeah, and Murloc is trying to get on their retreat. They know they're in a weaker position now that they have that on cooldown. This is a Mosh situation, though. That chokehold is a dream. As I say that, you do see the power slide in. Goku with a Sunder splitting the seas, and they're going to be falling down. Ancestral, perfect land, but it's going to be stopped with the wave of force there onto the Mosh, and they are on retreat. Murloc Geniuses now getting dominated. Such a beautiful fight on their half.
3 kills for nothing for TNC. They hit 16 and knew that was the time to go. Perfect time
and
for
came down
engagement.
to the Void, too.
And Void was down. Again, they've known that Void was down. And Li Ming was watching for Mosh Pit to come out too. Earlier, Fury power slid in, and Cleanse was even used on him. So I think they exactly what you said.
They thought that was going to be the Mosh.
Yes, but it ended up not being there. He did use Mosh, but it was much more like, oh my gosh, we've already lost somebody. We have to use this right now. And that was too late. They had Wave of Force. They easily pushed him away, got Li Ming to start getting resets, and now are sieging down a keep.
And this is one of the most crucial points. CNC already knows that they need to be efficient with their decision making here, but if they get any amount of damage, all right, Cawthon won't be able to clear in time, but if they get the harass out onto that keep too slow, Zeratul being able to spawn, this is a great situation for him. Zeratul is awesome at punishing when you overextend for map objectives like this, but it's not going to be the case. They were able to get the DPS out in time. Now we see TNC finally is only a 3/4 to a full level behind, but they have the first keep, and that is huge because now Dragon Knights aren't the end of the world. They will end up losing a keep if one goes down, but more than anything, they have a win condition that isn't just the Dragon Knight and like beating through force. They can finally, we win one more fight like that, we can win the game.
They can. They're starting to step out into the bottom lane to pick up one shrine at least. They know that with the global presence that Murloc Geniuses has, it's going to be really hard to get both of them without winning another team fight. But if they can make sure that they don't lose the Dragon Knight, once Murloc Geniuses gets 20, that's going to be key for them.
I would really like to see them actually just not even cap this camp. Just waiting it out, not giving the positioning, because you know Murloc isn't going to fight until 20, and you're doing everything you can. That's going to be a DK in that amount of time. The rotations are too easy for them. They have the global, they have Zeratul, and they have 20 advantage, and you're going to be just a sitting duck the same way you were at the 15-16 tier, or 14-16 tier. So I would have rather see them try and like bait them somewhere onto the map. Bottom probably the most realistic, hiding in that cove, looking to see maybe they'll make the bad rotation, maybe we can get a catch off here, but instead they back out, concede what it should be a DK here in the early half, finally making the rotation to try and get a stall, unlike we see in the game.
Oh, Thrall's going to go in, but I think it's going to be too late. Yeah, they got as many mercenary camps as they could, but because the Dragon Knight was picked up too, it's broadcasting their positioning that those Knights were still there.
Yep.
And they're going to walk out of that, but Murloc Geniuses picks it up in time, so they'll get this cruiser camp for the top lane to push down the bridge. Meanwhile, they're going to start to siege down some structures, use everything they have during this 20 advantage window.
Yeah, the most important thing for them at this point is trying to make sure they get 20 before Murloc Geniuses secures multiple keeps. At 1 is going to be okay, but if they get at 2 and you don't have the 20 to try and force a response on your opponents, it's going to be a really hard time for them. As we do see, Goku is trying to soak in the upper half. They know that 20 is really important here, as they now sit 3/4 of a level behind. Zag is getting rid of the Giants, so they have a breathing room for a short period of time. She's trying to make sure her team will do well, but that harass over time as they move into the keep here. Fury takes a bit of harass.
Another nice thing too is losing the keep on bottom, which was the vulnerable one from Murloc Geniuses.
Wow.
That's where TNC took down the keep. So they know that all at best it's going to do is catapults are going to push against each other. They won't have a lane that they have to worry too much about babysitting.
Yeah, and now Cawthon has already moved down to 9% here, so the Dragon Knight shouldn't be able to get too much more value, and we do see TNC has almost bought themselves enough time to be able to get 20. They shouldn't be able to get anything else too much out of this, but you see Murloc is getting desperate. They want to try and force this keep as best as they can before they get 20. DK gets removed. Getting rid of that well is actually a very valuable thing for them. I ended up No. Oh, there he goes. Ends up confirming it there.
Melted.
And now we see them back up. So finally, for the first time, TNC, that keep play we saw them make in the early half, this is great for them now. Because normally if they were going to try and take these fights, because they finally are in a position that they want to be, they wouldn't have a win condition. But now they finally have it. This is it. The next fight for TNC might be enough to be able to win them the game.
But similarly, with the keep down on the other side, it goes either way. Whoever wins that next fight, if it's won handily, that's it for the game.
I think the most important thing is that TNC wants it during this Dragon Knight phase being down. They don't have the global, they don't have the wave clear, they are in the back foot. So this is one of the few situations, the fact that Murloc is dancing and willing to posture this fight is almost as equally crazy as them taking Knights in the last game. But Buds looks like he's going to take a bit of harass, not too much. And this is the fight they want. TNC, Goku is looking for a flank. That could be huge.
Yes, but Fury is up again once trying to see if he can find that, and both he and Tom are going to notice it. Justin's going in though. Cleanse has been used to keep Tom alive, as has Ancestral Healing. A Void Prison in the back, and Goku doing what he can to keep them healed up. No deaths on either side, both realizing that it comes down to this moment.
Yeah, and with Thrall having his cooldowns off, it looks like they're going to see Murloc Genius to try and take the fight. Buds is under pressure for now. Goku is damage coming out into him. Divine Shield used. Fury under a lot of pressure. He is already removed from this. Mosh Pit is not going to be used yet. And Justin is moving forward way before trying to get the split here. Right as the Dragon Knight's going to spawn. For the first time, TNC looks like they might be able to get a DK. The most important thing is, though, that we still have a global and a Zeratul on the side of Murloc. So we need to make sure TNC never leaves anybody who's vulnerable to isolate to a situation, because they end up getting a pick and completely shifting momentum.
Yeah, this is a window for TNC, but a small one. They have to be very careful about how they start to separate out this. Bottom shrine is available, and that's where those giants will be pushing to. So they're going to trade out for that top shrine. But for Murlocs, they didn't lose too much. They're not losing the game at this point, at least.
Yeah, and so with the pressure on bottom, they should be able to make the rotation on top. I want to see what they can do. They know you can force Murlocs to respond to giants, 100%. So if you rotate to top right away, instead of getting this camp on bottom, they would be able to get top. They know Murlocs would rotate bottom, and then you can dance around that while you have somebody sneak a cap on mid. So with the decision to cap on the bottom half of the map, it shows that TNC wants a fight more than they want a Dragon Knight. And we see that with the Bolt Sunder. Cattle will end up getting the Bolt Blink out of there, and they're going to be all right. That is a huge cooldown. Going to be burnt too, actually, as Bolt is used as well.
Murloc geniuses have to be so happy about that, because along with Sundering being used, Void and Ancestral are back up. So that means Murloc can try to find a fight of their own to win this game, but Divine Shield will be ready for a couple of seconds. It's now there for TNC, and they're going to spread out. They're going to trade out on these shrines.
The most detrimental part of using those cooldowns trying to get that fight was that they rotated with the acceptance that they wanted to fight. They moved with the only decision that essentially they were like 100% we need to commit to a fight, and they did, but at that point they lost so much that now with the responding of their opponents, they're risking what is going to be another Dragon Knight rotation as Blessed Shield goes in. A lot of damage from the Lunara, as it looks like we see a small Murloc Genius on the retreat, as Coffin maybe going to get harassed, not enough damage out. He does the flank, and we see Murloc is going to keep doing what they do. They have the DK dream right now with the rotations on Zach.
Justin took a lot of damage and a lot of poke, but it's important to remember that he does have it indestructible now that we're at 20. So it is the best case scenario that he does that instead of somebody like Buds or somebody like Hal. And again, they can trade out shrines, but it still feels like, especially with everybody back up for Murlocs, that Murlocs are the ones dictating these rotations now.
And it's not going to stop anytime soon. And with how fast they got that, that's a free Dragon Knight. They can't stop it. So that is a possibly game-ending situation here. With Void up, they honestly can win the game. Void Mosh has great zoning tools. We'll see. They need to take the fight here as they look to get aggressive. Hound to win, taking way too much damage. Divine Shield, but he's already pretty much one-shot. They have to get a kill, and that is Coffin bleeding up here. That could be game.
That is it, too. There's Sundering from the backside as well that hits Cattle, but not enough to take him down. And Tiger JK way in the back maybe could be the one to go down, but Lunara is the one to drop. They leave Uther alone. They know that he's going to come back. He has redemption. He could give them heals as long as he is dead a lot easier. They finally bring him down, but with two important damage dealers to help stop this siege, this should be it for Murloc Geniuses.
I mean, it is. With the DK this late into the game and already 2 people down, they have almost no tools to be able to stop them. A repulsion sadly is not enough, in Uther. Your shrink ray or anything of the like is not going to be enough either. That's going to be it. Murloc Geniuses turn around the series and end up taking it 2-1 over team name change. But, I mean, you can't take it away from TNC. They put up a really good fight. I will say I was surprised that it was their map choice, considering how what I would consider poor or at least late a lot of those endgame rotations were. They seemed at least 10 to 15 seconds too far behind. I thought they were going to be the ones dictating the pace of the game, but not once was a Dragon Phase that I look at it and go, Murlocs might have a hard time here. And the only time they did was the late game pick, and they failed to get the fight they wanted.
Well, again, that just goes to show you how comfortable and confident Murlocs are the minute they get Zagara.
Yep.
They even had Zeratul, one that in the second game was not impressive, but it made all the difference in the world, maybe just for their mentality.
Yes, it
that
could.
They knew they had Zagara, a hero that won them, basically, the last tournament.
Yeah, I agree, and I think moving forward, this might be a situation where we see a team give them Zag, but I don't think it's going to last long.
Right.
Just again, because how comfortable Coffin is on that hero, but maybe how uncomfortable he may look on some of the others. But look at these replays, just consistently Murloc Geniuses dominating the map. -1 at like for a 2-minute period. Did they ever lose an advantage? And it quickly was caught back up after that missed Sunder.
Right, TNC were able to get the first keep, but Murloc Geniuses, and at least getting that one in the bottom, negated the catapult pressure and showed this very cool aggressive style between Psalm and Cattle. Something we didn't really get to talk too much about was their ability to dive on a target, somebody like Lunara or Li Ming, and pretty quickly execute them.
And this is the one team fight that we saw, the huge Blessed Shield Sundering situation in the chokehold, Repulsion coming out as well. I mean, very, very well done, as TNC was the only time they were able to get an upper hand, and this is the last fight here. A lot of pressure there going on. Divine Shield, well-timed, or actually this is the situation where they got the pick. It was really well done there, and I mean, for the most part, TNC, they put up a really good fight. Probably one of the best we've ever seen from them. We talked about it before. They look like the online version of themselves rather than the LAN version.
Right. The great job by TNC, but it's Murloc Geniuses who win, and we're going to talk to them right now.
Alrighty, guys, I'm Solid Jake, joined here with Cattle. Cattle, congratulations on the win. But coming into this day, Dread even labeled you guys as the team that wasn't supposed to win. You guys are going to BlizzCon. You're the champions. All the pressure's off your back. But how do you feel about that statement?
I mean, Dread can say what he wants. We're still here to win. We think we can win, and yeah, we'll show that we can do it.
So does it feel like you have less pressure on your back, or do you feel like you have a target on your back now that you're the champions?
I can't really speak for my team. I don't ever feel pressure personally, so nothing's changed. Nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed. Okay, going into game number 1, you guys did the first pick Ariel. Brand new hero. She wasn't available in Burbank. She's now on the table. And then you followed it up with the Cho'Gall. So this is a common strat a lot of us know about, but what I wasn't expecting is to see you guys go for the DPS Ariel. In particular, at level 16, you guys went for Reservoir of Hope. What is the decision between going for Reservoir of Hope versus the additional ability power for the Gall?
Reservoir of Hope with Cho'Gall stacks up so insanely fast. Like, you can actually stop playing the game pretty much and just stack it up if you're ahead, which we were at that point. So we just started fighting randomly just to get extra heals, which gives you extra damage with the level 1 talent that Psalm took, and it just starts snowballing late game. And it's, I don't know, I think it's way better than the ability power with Cho'Gall, just with how much damage he already does.
Well, it showed off. The last question I have for you is, are you trying to prove a point by now busting out Zeratul for the first time just to say that your hero pool is like above and beyond everyone else?
Not really. We just kind of, I don't know. Zeratul looked good in those situations, so we decided to pick him. Like, we've practiced everything at this point pretty much, so I don't know. I can play whatever we need.
Awesome. Well, Murlocs will be moving on to the next round. Coming up, we have another match getting ready for you, so stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.